likelihood of that person being alive is slim.
Yep.
Interestingly enough, this report talks about the fact that quite a number of them are not deceased. Some of them are, but quite a number are not. It's a combination of several things.
So those that are not deceased, where are they?
Shares, deposits, dividends, pension money. People have not picked up.
You know, that is what they are saying. Are they giving details? Like in percentages? I mean, I belong to a SACCO that very, very often says, you know, there's monies which were sent to us, and they give the bank from which it was sent, but they don't give names and say, look, if it is, you know, please come and verify this for us. Now, that one, I would argue those people may be alive and they may have forgotten that they sent the money, or in their minds, the money did get into their accounts, whatever it is. But you're talking about monies that people had, title deeds in banks, money in banks,
shares and such,
kept in safety in banks.
Yeah, and then people have forgotten. I think we'll seek those questions. So the CEO of the Unclaimed Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority will be here, and we'll ask those questions. And then also we'll have a media discussion again today. As we keep reviewing the newspapers every morning, are we facing the death of this newspaper? So we'll have a conversation with a number of editors who will be joining us in the studio and on the line to have that conversation. This is one discussion that has been in the public domain for over a decade now, the looming death of the newspaper. So we'll have that in detail. In the meantime, let us begin the show where we always begin. Fellow Kenyans, in the last 24 hours.
In the last 24 hours, quite a number of cases, again, in the 400s. And that tips things, over quite some. And just looking at COVID cases in Kenya right now, just give me a second. Now, 461 new cases in Kenya. Confirmed cases now at 11,252. New recoveries at 51. Total recoveries at 3,068. Deaths yesterday then stood... total deaths now stood at 209, with 7 deaths having been recorded yesterday in Kenya. And so that's what we're looking at. Second day running where you have over 450 cases having been recorded, from a high number of tests having been carried out as well. So, we're still looking at more and more of the same thing. It's interesting because one of the headlines today talks about the fact, 2 things, how COVID is bringing government to a halt, number one, and the virus puts schools on deathbed. And we'll look at those stories later. But yeah, we're likely to see an increase in the numbers. And this is one thing that we've said. We'll see a decrease in the actual number, but when compared to the number of tests that are being carried out, it's still high in terms of percentages. And I don't think we should be surprised if we see the cases then going towards 500 and more, per day.
And the information that you were asking about yesterday, CT, has been released on the comorbidities.
Yes.
And how people are actually presenting themselves to hospitals. So the coronavirus is killing more people with diabetes and hypertension.
32%.
That's a very high percentage, right?
Hey, Baba,
And
it's a third.
It's
Plus.
It's more than a third. Just hypertension and diabetes. And then hypertension itself, 18%. Diabetes, 14%.
Yes.
Chronic lung diseases, that's asthma, TB, lung, and other chest-related complications, 10%. Cancers, including breast, prostate, tongue, colon, 10%. HIV/AIDS, 4%. Cardiovascular complications, 2%. Going all the way to intestinal obstruction on 1%. So you see, people with hypertension and diabetes and lung diseases, lung complications are really at high risk of COVID, right? So this is what we are seeing in terms of numbers in the hospitals.
Right.
And according to government statistics, 24% of the adult population, that's about 6.1 million people, are hypertensive. Now, the thing about all this information is also stepping back into our health-seeking behavior. Many of us do not go for regular medical checkups. So there are very many people who actually do not know their status, hypertension or diabetes. And, when you're caught with COVID, that's when now you start going through all these tests and you discover that, okay.
It's interesting that you say that, because a study was then done, and of the people then who present themselves to hospital, when now symptoms have overtaken a normal health balance, they found that only 16% of these people would come in for a regular checkup. So it's very, very low in terms of numbers.
Yeah.
And so quite a high percentage are coming when, things are already down the drain, as it were.
It exposes that very strong bit about our healthcare system.
Secondly, there's something called adherence. You may have been tested and you may have been found to have some of these conditions, and it requires continuous medication.
Yeah.
Some you can be weaned off medication, some you cannot. But the truth of the matter is that that's what they call chronic. Now, many people have a problem with adherence. Not just a matter of discipline, but sometimes it's a matter of financial ability.
Yeah.
Because these chronic ailments or conditions, non-communicable diseases as they are called, unfortunately the treatment of them is expensive.
And it's lifelong.
Yes, even with generic medication, they are expensive. So people tend to, should we say, break whatever cycle or pattern.
Yeah.
But for no other reason other than they cannot afford.
Can't afford it.
Yes. That's why that NHIF scheme, in a sense, was really a good one, the way it was presented. Because it took care of some of these non-communicable diseases.
Yeah.
It went as far as even taking care of cancer.
True. The global case is now upwards of 13 million, 691,627. And that's what we're looking at around the world, with 586,821 deaths. The numbers in the US, interestingly enough, are about a tenth still. Just over a tenth of the world's cases are in the United States. Brazil inching closer and closer to 2 million cases, with 1,970,909 with 75,000 deaths. The cases in Mexico still continue to increase, 6,149 cases having been recognized, 579 of those resulting in death. South Africa now well over 300,000. Yesterday, South Africa, just look at this. Yesterday, South Africa was at 298,000. Today, South Africa is at 311,049. So South Africa yesterday alone recorded 13,000 cases of COVID.
This, perhaps an understanding of, as you call it, the comorbidity would be interesting. Because you're talking about a country that for the longest time posted some of the highest prevalences of HIV. So that is a pre-existing condition.
Yeah.
And given the nature of HIV, you could argue that following up with COVID, the exposure to the COVID virus would perhaps be very, very harmful to a large population of people in this country, especially if they had a comorbidity condition. Yes.
Very high numbers.
Very, very high.
And the number is extremely high.
The numbers in the number of deaths in South Africa?
4,453. Now, it's still very low compared to the number of cases. However, the numbers that are now being found to be positive now okay, so you have a number of cases that have been positive. Of those numbers, 60% of them are presenting in hospital with symptoms. So now the South African government is quite worried because people are coming into hospital and are actually sick. They're not asymptomatic. 60% of the confirmed cases are individuals who are now sick, and they're worried about if the health system is going to be able to hold them up. So this is a problem.
That's a big one. That's a big one. The good thing is about them is also their testing capacity is still high.
Yeah.
You can see the number of tests that they're doing compared with the number of tests.
This is true. Still continues to be a problem in Central and Southern America in terms of what they're finding, and we know the countries around. Now, Australia also continues to record more cases that they had not seen before, 320 cases in the last 6 hours, whereas they were dealing with 234. The highest they had gone to in the last 14 days was 28. And now, as of yesterday, having recorded 320 cases, whereby they thought that this was staving off. It really is not. More and more now are jumping out at them.
I think the thing we need to bear in mind, again, even with COVID, these are still early days. Why I call it early days? So far, the information that we keep talking about or regurgitating is information that we have now. But there's still a lot more research being done on it. And with time, we will actually either confirm, discover new things that we didn't know. And that is the nature of anything of this nature. Yes.
It's still a very fluid situation.
It is very, very fluid in many ways. I mean, you've seen WHO themselves saying one thing, and not very long after, sort of like saying, excuse me, as we were saying.
What we meant was.
Yes, exactly.
Now what we know
is
this and the other. 6:15, it's a situation room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a break, take a look at the weather. It's a very cold day in the studio this morning. I want to say just Nairobi. Maybe it's warming up in Nairobi. It's still very cold in this studio. Quick break, and then we come back and start looking at the newspaper headlines. Good morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi today at 14 degrees, mostly cloudy today, and there will be a sprinkle later on with highs of 19 and lows of 12. In Nyeri, it's cloudy conditions at 14 degrees. Rain is forecasted for most parts of the day, well into Friday, with highs of 18 and lows of 13. Cloudy conditions as well in Nakuru at 13 degrees. A rainy afternoon, highs of 20 and lows of 12. Eldoret also cloudy conditions at 13 degrees and quite chilly there this morning as well. Thunderstorms likely to come in later with highs of 18 and lows of 12. Cloudy conditions in Kisumu at 19 degrees. Will enter rain later with highs of 24 and lows of 18. It's also 16 degrees in Kakamega and cloudy. Thunderstorms make an entrance later with highs of 21 and lows of 15. In Malindi, it's partly cloudy at 25 degrees. Chance of rain quite high quite early on with highs of 27 and lows of 24. In Mombasa, 24 degrees and mostly cloudy. We'll see rain showers later with highs of 27 and lows of 23. All right, stepping out into East Africa, in Kampala, 19 degrees and mostly cloudy. Thunderstorms expected for later with highs of 21 and lows of 18. Clear skies in Dar es Salaam at 23. It'll change later though to highs of 30 and lows of 21 and rain showers in the afternoon. It's quite chilly in South Africa at 1 degree currently. Clear skies, however, and sunny conditions with highs of 17 and lows of 1. And in Lagos, 24 degrees, we'll see highs of 27 degrees and lows of 23 with cloudy conditions later on. London is cloudy at 17 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 16 and partly cloudy conditions to follow later. It's also 17 and cloudy conditions in Paris with highs of 23 and lows of 16. And finally for now in New York, cloudy conditions on Wednesday night. We will see highs of 26 and lows of 21.
Minutes after 6, it's the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Eric Latif Nduoko and C.T. Muga with today's proverb.
Today's proverb is one of those proverbs that are, I'm going to call them universal because you're not even told specifically where. But this one of interest was that it's part of a song. And this is what the proverb says. It is the heart that is afraid of breaking that never learns to dance. I'm going to repeat it. It is the heart that is afraid of breaking that never learns to dance.
Hiya. Let your heart dance.
Oh, please, Eric.
Just let it dance.
Yeah,
Okay.
No.
Okay. Just let your heart dance. Okay, let's take a look at newspaper headlines. What do you have?
What's new on the menu? Hotels serve up deals to woo visitors. The hospitality industry that collapsed as virus-forced layoffs and lockdowns kept away holidaymakers is slowly coming back to life, and the excitement is heightened by the resumption of domestic flights. So we know for a fact that yesterday, Kenya Airways took to the skies, jumbo jets across the country, flights having been resumed. And so now one of the industries that was most hardest hit was, the hotels, restaurants, the service industry. And now many are offering 30% discounts on any reservations made by Friday, July 17th. And these are some of the things that you're going to hear now. Exceptional offers for exceptional times communicated by distant relatives in Kilifi, reflecting the reality that the pandemic has impressed on the hospitality sector. Kenya's hospitality industry is banking on brighter days following the resumption of domestic flights yesterday and the commuter train service on Monday the 13th. The resumption of transport services comes hot on the heels of the unveiling of health and safety protocols by Tourism Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala on the 1st of July. In a webinar hosted recently by Wild International, an innovative professional services firm, Balala urged tourism operators to become digitally proactive during this period, especially in tapping the domestic markets that hold immense potential. So
And
this is
they're
one
What on earth did he mean?
Yes. So
You know what they're doing now is they're really, really marketing to the local industry, to
Yeah.
the local market. So many hotels are coming up with offers. Come and stay for the weekend. Come and stay. Come and celebrate.
Staycation.
Yeah, it's a staycation. Come and celebrate whatever. Celebrate a birthday. Come and celebrate your anniversary. Come, just bring your family out and spend a night. Others are saying, uncage yourself.
Of interest is that I remember there was a time when we had the Kayabombo menace at the coast.
Yeah.
It disrupted tourism completely at the coast. And one of the things that the bodies that are charged with ensuring that that industry is revamped actually went on something similar, but they were, should we say, even more revved up. So local tourism became the thing.
Yep.
Kenya Airways, in conjunction with the hotels, would offer beautiful deals. I mean, you would read and say, no, I can afford this holiday.
Yep.
They're doing what a lot of countries have done in the past and what remains their practice. In the United States, for example, 90% of tourists are Americans within their country, whether
Yep.
you're going across country from New York to California, you're looking at the Yosemite parks, or you're in Disney World in Florida, Disneyland in California. It is Americans.
They don't even think of leaving their country.
They don't.
No,
They-
yes.
It's a huge country anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, crossing from one side to the other
Yeah.
is proper tourism.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
even the tourists that you say that you see in Kenya who come from the States, it's a very small percentage of the Americans who actually visit. But what I'm saying is that what is happening now is a very good thing, but it must be maintained. Because I remember a few years ago when KWS went on this local tourism aware campaign
Yep.
to get more Kenyans to
visit the national parks.
It's something that shouldn't be a flash in the pan kind of action, but it should be a regular thing. It should be.
It's always there. They always try to communicate this information, but I guess it's how we have always believed that parks and game
Are for
drives
tourists,
and for
are for-
tourists.
And
are
holiday,
for
And
foreign
holiday-
tourists.
you go
and
home.
holiday is for shags.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
What has happened now, actually, even on this story, is it's saying in the month of June alone, the Nairobi National Park recorded 21,000 visitors. June alone. That is more than twice what it had recorded the previous year.
There's something about local tourism. If you talk to people who have service establishments outside Nairobi, one of the things that they will tell you is that their biggest and most profitable clients come from the counties. And they will tell you, our own people, said our people know how to spend. There's something about tourism that comes from the West that people don't understand. Many of them are package tours. So what you get is minuscule.
Completely.
The people who actually arrange those particular tours remain with the money, especially with these package tours.
Yeah.
Now, there's a whole shift of thinking, and you got it right. It can't be that when you have a problem and the business has gone down is when you wake up to it. No. It should be continued so that you have an entire generation who think knowing, yes, go to shags, yes, but you can also take a holiday. And you don't have to go as far as Mombasa or Turkana. No. If you're in Western Kenya, go to Turkana.
Yep.
If you're in Turkana, meaning you can visit places that are close to you and which
Right.
are affordable.
Yeah.
True.
It's just about knowing a lot more about it. And the numbers of domestic tourists have actually been rising. All
They
the
have been
statistics that are
rising.
released by the KTB and the ministry show that there's always a gradual increase. And even new entrants and players who are coming into this market. People like Bonfire Ventures who sell these packages. They go make deals with local service providers and then they sell the packages and they've really thrived.
No, they have thrived. It's COVID that has probably put a dent on it.
Yeah.
There's one establishment in the Nyeri area called Shaka.
Chaka Ranch.
Yes, I'm calling it Shaka.
Because that's how it's pronounced.
Yes, that's exactly how it's pronounced. Now, it's an establishment that has over the years I've observed, because I happen to know the proprietor, it has thrived. And what I was telling you earlier, I actually got from this individual. He told me, you get mesmerized by corporates, what have you. He said, no. The people who make the business stay the way it is are these people who come from the counties. Because they come there and they do not have a moratorium on spending. What he said was, there are people who it's on their bucket list.
Yep.
Just, you go, drink a soda, check.
Check.
We've been to check.
Right.
And yet, in this country right now, if you go right across the counties, believe me, literally all the counties have places that are worth visiting.
This is true.
True. True.
And you'll find that people who live in those counties don't even know those places exist.
Yep. But there are very many that have come up, and you realize that it's because there's a market.
It's true.
And
There's a
something's
wealth. There's a
happening.
wealth of opportunity here, even for the tourism ministry, to look inwards, to be very insular about this. And a gold mine could grow from this, not just in counting the pennies, but also then giving Kenyans a sense of really what lies within the borders of this country that you can actually see and experience. It shouldn't be that others come out and see it and tell the story for you.
You know that
What I'm not liking, though, for example, right now, is I'm not seeing the county government of Narok advertising the Masai Mara.
The wildebeest migration has already begun.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is the opportunity to basically just make all Kenyans who have just thought about going to the Mara, never really considered, find it possible.
Do you know it's something? It's actually
Set
quite
an
it's actually
opportunity.
quite a spectacle.
Yeah.
By the way,
It's unbelievable.
I mean, seeing it,
It's incredible.
quite a spectacle.
It's
Sell that
incredible.
opportunity and make everybody know, okay, guys, would you like to go to the Mara? Come. Bring your family to the Mara. It's
Actually,
possible for you to drive
it
all
is
the way
possible.
into the park and come back.
You know what is of interest, Eric? You see, the Kenya Wildlife Services has actually made visiting parks very affordable to Kenyans.
Yep.
Yes.
It's not something that is beyond you, if it's something that you want to do. But then, of course, there's the issue of, okay,
Once you get there.
it's a pity. It's a pity because, yes, it's a pity because it can be marketed.
It can. It can. And it's all about just the people who are playing that sector coming together and finding a common voice and saying, this is how we're going to market.
But do you know where they've marketed some of these
Destination
things?
Masai Mara.
Eric, it's in schools. If you have a child in school, you will realize that children go to these places.
Yes.
And when they come back, the stories they tell you, they clearly had a good time.
Yeah. They enjoyed it.
They enjoyed it.
6:30, the Situation Room continues. Let's take a quick break, take a look at traffic, and then we come back and look at more stories in the newspapers this morning.
Committee Road, bumper to bumper already this morning. And then we look at what's going on Thika Road. In and outbound, it's moving quite slowly today. It's a Thursday, but let's see how that will open up later on. Mombasa Road, not much going on all the way from the Athi River turnoff and the Kitengela turnoff as well. Coming down then towards the SGR. It's not so terrible right now in the morning, but we know that is going to change in a short while. So we need to have our caution up as we get out. If you got out early enough, you should be fine. Those who will join us later, it means that we'll probably get into some traffic. We'll take a look at different spots where there might be trouble today and let you know how that looks like. If anything does jump out at you right now, please don't hesitate to let us know. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Let us know what you see, but for now, it looks pretty good.
Situation Room continues. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Job data shows Kibaki was a corporate and Uhuru is a hustler president. Some of that means that
Spice
if you compare the two
FM,
presidents,
Malindi.
during Kibaki's time, new job opportunities were going into formal employment, and in Uhuru's time, new job opportunities, jobs are going
Mature,
into
intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
About the place of the informal sector in the country. The sector has expanded in the President Uhuru Kenyatta. Informal President
Mornings
Mwai Kibaki's first
done
term
right.
in 2009.
94.4.
For every 10 workers, 7 eked out a living in the informal sector. This has increased to 82% in President Uhuru Kenyatta's first terms. first term, rather, and the critics of the expansion of the informal market decry the poor pay and harsh working conditions endured by workers, those hired to work as house helps, in farms, hawkers, or to look after livestock.
Okay.
So basically what they're saying is 7.9 million in the 7th year as President Kibaki's government registered up to 1.9 million Kenyans in formal employment, with 7.9 in the informal sector. 2.28 million when Jubilee took over the reins of power in 2013. Approximately 2.28 million Kenyans were working in the formal sector. 7 years later, the number of Kenyans in the formal sector has risen to 3 million, while the Juakali Association estimates that 23 million people are employed in the informal sector.
When someone loses their formal employment, where do you think they go to?
Into informal.
Yes, you do. In fact, it started a lot earlier. There was a period in the Moi era when they had something called the Golden Handshake. Now, that Golden Handshake targeted people who were even between the age of 35, 40, some in the early 40s. But you had a choice. You could actually take a retirement package. You know, this gap that we keep talking about in the civil service, it came about then. Because those who were older stayed. And when they're about to leave, the cadre that could have taken over, many of them had taken the Golden Handshake, so they were not there.
Yep.
So it's taken this long to get that cycle back to something that is balanced. But this had begun then. Now, what gave it the proper jig was you had people who had actually been educated. See, the Juakali sector for the longest time was considered the place where you dumped people who didn't have very much formal education and couldn't do much else. But with the Golden Handshake, you certainly had a situation where people were joining it with a little more knowledge, so they revamped it. And that's when you found that you didn't just, this thing of you go to have your hair cut. For men, it was just one place you went to.
Yeah.
They spent half the time slapping your head around, actually. Okay? Then came the issue of a salon and a portion for men. Now, this is innovation. And at the same time, car wash. You see, all these were innovations. So even as you go to Choma ya Nyama, you'll have your car wash, you can have your haircut. Now, these are innovations that came with time.
Yep. But looking at now the growth of the two sectors and what you're looking at presently is mainly indicative of the many people who are getting into the job market and they're not getting employment in the formal sector, getting employment in the informal sector. It's whether they're getting the quality of job that is worthy. It's whether the informal sector is actually growing into formalizing. That also is an indicator of how the economy is doing.
The formal sector that we speak of, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's commerce, if you look at the genesis of most of these things, even the multinational companies, they began as informal sector.
Yes, they did.
You begin from that point and then you graduate.
Yes.
Now, are we transitioning many of our informal businesses into formal?
Have we put enough emphasis and given sufficient support for that to happen?
Yep.
Like the two things that have come to mind. Remember the gentleman who made this very interesting foldable chairs, benches rather. Okay?
Yep.
Wasn't his invention, but he made it known in Kenya, right? Then now there's this group of, and these are young people who are making lovely beds, lovely hospital beds. And the president has stepped in. Okay. Now, if it wasn't a spit and span situation, but rather a direct policy being implemented. Remember, the policy exists, but being implemented for such things, then what you're saying would happen. Because then we would not need to import beds.
Yep.
We would know that we have...
Would be able to support this. So these young men, actually, they are covered in the story in the Standard this morning as well, right? So their story is saying the president dispatched the presidential delivery unit head, Andrew Wakahio, who went there and said, okay, so the president has seen what you guys are doing from social media. It has been posted, it has been shared widely. And he has ordered that you deliver, how many beds? 500 units. But then you have 45 days to do this. Within that time, KEBS has to come in and see whether you meet the standards. They have to bring in the numeric, what's it called? The numeric machining complex to help incubate them. You see, this is where now this kind of organizations that are government organizations come in. Because the numeric machining complex should have been able to have noticed this kind of thing, started incubating them, help them to formalize their business, help them in These guys are just artisans.
And even help them in marketing.
Yes, these are just what they do. They're good at is making. Now they need to be incubated. They need to be taught how do you run a business, a
Right.
successful
You know that
business.
unit you speak of is well-equipped, Chief.
They have what they need.
Oh, they're very well-equipped. It's just that you keep wondering, okay, what do they do on a daily basis?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. And this is what they ought to be doing on a daily basis.
We should be hearing about them. When you hear about the others, the iHubs and the others, we should also be hearing about the numeric machining complex. The other one that we talked about the other day, the Kenya Industrial, what's it?
Which one?
The institute. Remember the guy who was making Miraa chewing gum?
Yes,
And
yes,
he was
yes,
incubated
yes,
by
yes,
a certain
yes.
government institute.
Yes.
Should be hearing more of such stories about, such. When you have this kind of innovation, seek them out. They look at you, they see, all right, so this can be scaled up, train you, incubate you, help you to go to market. I'm not sure these young men are going to be able to meet a 500 units demand in 45 days.
In 45
If they're
days.
assisted, they can.
Yeah. If they get the support that they need, then
They can.
it's possible
They can.
to have this done.
They can.
And because we're talking about a couple of men, right? It's a pair that started this business.
Yep.
It's obvious that they're going to need extra hands, but these extra hands then also need to be trained, in a certain way. But again, the support, if they have the support that is needed, then it is very possible to have
You
that
see,
done.
these numbers often require an assembly line.
Yeah. That's a very huge number. 500
Yeah.
units in
Yes,
45 days.
yes.
That's
You need
It's a
an
large-
assembly line. This one just makes a head
basically
of the-
just telling them that somebody else is going to come and fulfill this order on your behalf. That's why I'm saying I am not sure. It would have been a good thing if you said that, all right, so what we're going to do is we are going to say for the next X number of months, whatever you produce is going to be off-taken by the government. But we want you to go meet with the numeric machining complex. We want you to organize yourselves. We want you to grow your capacity, and then we'll give you more business. 500 for guys who are somewhere in Githongori. And see, this is not just an ordinary bed. It has to meet.
This bed is complex.
Standard,
by
It's
the way.
complex, and you're taking it to a hospital.
And by the way, it moves.
Yeah.
It's not just metal that has been put together and it sits there staring at you.
No.
It moves up,
moves.
down.
Slides in. All right.
But it's a beginning.
It is. It's a good beginning.
And I think it's a good thing that has been found out, that they can actually do this. All right. So yesterday, some fellows from Kazim Tani decided that they were going to strike because they had not been paid. And more interestingly is that the stipends have been reduced to accommodate more youths. Beneficiaries who were initially being paid 600 shillings will now be paid 455 daily from the pilot program. The government has rolled out the second phase of the 10 billion Kazim Tani program that brings on board more than 270,000 youth across the country. Under the National Hygiene Program, the government seeks to involve skilled and semi-skilled labourers from informal settlements and rural settings to cushion them against the effects of COVID-19. Speaking in Kisumu yesterday while launching the initiative, on Tuesday, I beg your pardon, ICT Principal Secretary Jerome Ochieng said the government will triple the number of beneficiaries in the region from 2,600 to 7,500 after successful completion of the pilot program. In the first phase, Kisumu's informal settlements were involved alongside Nairobi, Mombasa, Kiambu, Nakuru, Kilifi, Kwale and Mandera counties. Each person will be paid 455 shillings daily and will be required to work for 11 days a month. Their wages will be paid every 2 weeks through mobile cash transfer.
But not 6,000 anymore.
Not
So what were
600
the
per
guys
day anymore,
complaining?
because they had not been paid.
For how long?
Even that yesterday, now these folks who were striking yesterday had not been paid for 2-week periods. Okay, so a month. So even when they had been told that they would be paid after 2 weeks, now a month had passed and they had not been paid. But they were quickly rounded up by police yesterday and dispersed. So now whether they received their money after their striking yesterday, we do not know.
You know, the police should be paid a lot more than they're paid. Because they really perform functions of other ministries very well.
They deal with everything.
Yes, because, we have a health problem. It's the police who are handling it.
Yeah.
They want to make sure that you're wearing your...
We have a finance
Yeah.
problem.
It's them who are handling it. But there's something on page 3 that has caught my attention of the Standard. State offices shut as staff test positive. Shut. And in one ministry, there was even a fatality. Now, when you have a situation where the COVID pandemic has reached government offices, and we started reading about this when the testing was taken to government offices and there was a clear campaign to up it. it tells you that this problem has gone to the nerve center of the country. The ifs and buts about it, gone. The page before that, there's the issue of reducing the cost of testing. It's been accepted. It's not free. You go to KNH, people have been saying they're paying 5,000. There's been an attempt and a talk of reducing it so that it is 1,000. That particular goal has not yet been achieved.
Until they've even stopped it and said people should not present themselves at hospital for tests. Yeah, so that even as an option has been removed completely.
But if you go to hospital and you're exhibiting symptoms, they will have to test you. I mean, that's what they expected to do.
Yes, but now you can't go and request a test. You can't just go to Bagavi or Kenyatta National Hospital and say, I'd like to be tested.
But on a positive note, on page 4, first vaccine test in US revved up people's immune system. They're telling you what happened. This is a test. This is a study that has involved 30,000 persons. Okay? So it means it's a research process that is nearing the end. 30,000 is a good number to try and determine whether the flu shot exists or this shot exists, but they want to determine whether it is strong enough to protect against the virus. And this, well...
So it boosted the immunity.
Well, what they have... No, it hasn't... Before you get to 30,000, you usually have tests, a phase 2, where you have lower numbers of people testing.
Yeah.
So you can only move to those larger numbers when there have been positive results. Okay? But what we're referring to starts on the 27th of July. We haven't gotten there yet. But the earlier tests have shown positive signs. But why it's not being spoken of in great... You cannot tell the efficacy of any drug or a vaccine until you've tested it among a larger population of people. Then that gives you what we call credible data. Yes.
All right.
Let's hope that it works. Let's talk about KPA's portal, shall we, today? KPA has come up with a new information portal with the realization that there are very many people who don't really know what exactly KPA does and where it operates from and how you can access KPA services. So they decided to come up with a portal called Captain Cargo. This is KARGO, and Captain Cargo is on kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo. You get information about importing, about exporting, customer service charter, the port tariffs, for example. What are the tariffs if you are seeking various services at the port? The vessel services is what we were looking at yesterday. And when CT's vessel was arriving in Mombasa from China, carrying PPEs. So what is it that we're going to talk about today?
Well, so today we're going to look at basically what is on offer for you in terms of what you will be able to receive from this portal, especially when it comes to customer services. And there's a charter, obviously, that has been established. So you will then be able to get that information on the charter, on the portal, and walk you through that today in terms of what you can or cannot get. But in most cases, in this case, it's what you can.
It's what you can get. Captain Cargo, Captain KARGO is on their website. You can just go to captaincargo.kpa.co.ke or www.kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo. Good morning. It's 48 minutes after 6 o'clock. Let's take a look at... let's take just a quick break, and then we come back and look at more newspaper headlines.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
At 10 minutes to 7 minutes, the situation really can this conversation. More and more interesting stories in the newspapers today. One of them is this one. Nobody received county loan 1 year after the launch. So this is a story about Garissa County, which whose governor had come up with a program for 150 million shillings loan fund that was created to benefit women, youth, and people living with disabilities 1 year ago. Yesterday, a report indicated how only 10 million shillings was deposited to the fund's account, with all of it being spent on various activities aimed at strengthening the fund's institutional and governance framework. The remaining 140 million has never been deposited and could therefore not be utilized over the financial period or disbursed to targeted beneficiaries. The report was tabled in the County Assembly, showing that 85% of the funds was to be allocated for direct disbursement to the beneficiaries. Up to 10% was to go to operations for the funds program, where 3% was meant for administrative costs. The remaining 2% was for contingency and eventuality. But zero has gone to its intended use. Well, it went to set up the offices and the infrastructure and all. Some 10 million shillings.
10 million shillings.
Has been sent
That's
to set up all those
setting up,
things.
isn't it?
Yeah. You know, it's important to set up all these things.
At just a mere cost of a mere 10 million shillings.
Yeah, just a mere 10 million shillings. And then now 140 should have been spent on at least now going to the actual program. Did it go? No.
Okay. It is a pity.
Well,
It is a
I
shame.
mean, was it purpose to actually...
Was that the original intent that this money?
Yeah,
was
this
supposed to
stated
actually go
goal,
to
was it
establish?
really... Are there any indications? Because beyond the 10 million, were there any movement to try and attempt to even get money into that fund? Or
You see, the CEO in charge of Trade, Tourism and Enterprise Development, Ado Jubat, when he was responding to these queries by the County Assembly, said the ground had been laid for the disbursement of the funds, and he says that they had formed county and sub-county revolving fund committees with clear functions. The department has trained officials in all these 7 sub-counties, establishing fund workstations, secretariat desks equipped with desktop computers, accessories, working stationery and fund application forms in each of the counties. So they've basically taken the last 1 year just to get everything right. You need to go to each sub-county because this thing, for it to be accessible to this group of population, it has to be easily accessible near them. So they had to set up, they had to bring in computers, they had to set up desks, they had to go to every sub-county, they had to create committees that are going to vet who qualifies for it. That's what they say.
So now
it has
that
taken
they've
them 1
set it
year.
up, has it started? It has, but
Not
hasn't
yet,
started
not
yet.
yet.
We're still waiting. Okay. We wait a little more. And in terms of other things that need to be waited for, the IEBC in plan to reuse 2017 poll technology, the one that works so beautifully well. They want to reuse it in the next election. The electoral agency says the move will help cut costs and appeals to Parliament to pass election laws early. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission yesterday reiterated its plan to reuse polls technology procured from IDEMIA, formerly of OT Morpho, in the 2022 polls, saying it will save the country money. IEBC Commissioner Abdi Gulay said reusing the technology means the country will only incur costs of procuring software to upgrade the technology and not the capital-intensive investment it would take were the country to get a new polls system supplier. And I quote, "We are quite keen on reusing the technology we have for the 2022 elections. This means we have to service the hardware and software that we already have, and if the software is proprietary, then we have to renew licenses for their continued use."
Makes sense to me. It does. You see, technology is technology.
Yeah.
It's the use of the technology that you may have a question with. Though there are questions about how it was procured. Okay, so it's here. You already have the tablets. Did the
Yes.
tablets work? The tablets worked. Did the software work? The software worked. Now, if you're talking about how the access to that information or whether the information was being manipulated,
Whole
now
different
so you
kettle
deal
of
with
fish.
deal with all those other issues.
Yeah.
But instead of telling us, let's start another procurement and spend I don't know how many billions of shillings to buy new kits for
No. There's also a push for Parliament to pass election laws as soon as possible so that they enter into the election period knowing where the Commission stands and certain things that they're able to then communicate to the country.
Yep.
So then asking Parliament basically to get their act together, especially when it comes to these laws, that they need to be able to get their job done. On the same page, if I may, Tobiko offers reprieve to Ngong homeowners. Environment and Forestry Cabinet Secretary Keriako Tobiko has told the Senate committee that there were no immediate plans to demolish houses constructed on land the government claims was grabbed from Ngong Forest. This was after, of course, 2 weeks ago when he said that there were plans. He, however, said no amount of cajoling or wheedling would take his focus off the forest, which he says he is intent on fully recovering. The CS, who was yesterday responding to the Senate Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources regarding queries raised on the floor of the House concerning his intentions to repossess land that he claims belongs to the Kenya Forest Service, said he would follow the recommendations of the Dungu Land Commission to compel the purported landowners to surrender their titles, because this is forest. This is forest land. It's public land. Cannot have houses.
So what's a
on
reprieve?
it. Time.
Okay, so it was reported yesterday that when he went to the National Assembly, he was basically saying that if Parliament can allow KWS to extend a lease to these people, then we formalize the accession of this immediate section that is occupied by people. Because former Minister Francis Lotodo had ensured that this one is going to be excised for
schools.
Social use, yes.
That is what he had said. One could argue very, very strenuously that housing is social.
You could. You could.
Or a prison
Of
that's
course.
there.
It's very social.
Yeah.
Or a dog unit.
Yep.
Very social.
Or a hospital.
He did, however, say that the government would go after all the professionals and public officials who participated in the illegal allocations and all monies and proceeds from the allocations and sale of the land recovered. A number of residents, including those from Langata Garden, Silverline, Kenya Medical Association Estates, as well as Beige Investments Limited, have gone to court seeking interim restraining orders against the planned demolitions pending full hearing on the 28th of this month.
It's going to be a dicey one, this one.
Yes, it is.
There's a church in Mombasa. It's actually a Salvation Army church. It's a place called Majengo in Mombasa.
Eh?
It's nestled between two mosques.
Yes.
It has survived 3 attacks, arson, equipment damage. It still survives.
Still standing.
But radicals have been blamed for it because religious leaders who are balanced say, no. This isn't the work of people who believe in Islam. These are the misguided youth who do not understand tolerance and living together with others.
Where is it? It's in Majengo.
Majengo, Mombasa. It's actually between two very considered hotbeds of radicalism.
This is Masjid which?
You've got it right. And Musa Mosque.
When you hear Masjid Musa, you remember the person who used to preach there and the activities that are alleged to have happened there in terms of recruitment.
Masjid is one, Musa is another. But so it's in the middle of these two.
The Masjid Musa. So coming up to 7 o'clock, this is the situation. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Keep it right here because we are going to talk about financial assets that have been unclaimed, 16 billion shillings, and this authority trying to ask people, please come and claim. It's your wealth. CT, today's proverb.
Today's proverb is one of those proverbs that are given a universal outlook. No specific place, you say African, okay? It is the heart that is afraid of breaking that never learns to dance.
Okay. This one will want to hear the kind of application in today's life. Good morning. It's now 7 o'clock.
All right, let's look at it from Wayaki Way, starting at the Udhiru Junction to Nairobi CBD. It's piling up, but it's moving very, very slowly. We don't have much issues there. It's expected because the construction is still going on right around the 87. As you get then towards the Red Hill bypass, that's an option to use to get out of any mess that you would find yourself in. But it's not too terrible that you would have to take that option right now. Komarok Road, that's from Highway to number 36. There's no traffic whatsoever. You'll find your way in the CBD if that's where you're headed quite quickly. The eastern and southern bypasses don't have too much of an issue this morning. And the Dandora railway station is filled to the brim as passengers are waiting for the train. Limuru Road inbound at Muthaiga roundabout. There's an accident involving a matatu and a lorry. Exercise caution as you approach, please. Kangunda Road is flowing very smoothly through to Outer Ring. There's not an issue there. We'll take a spot check on Mombasa Road in a short while, but it's not built up to the point whereby we'd be uncomfortable just yet. We'll let you know what it looks like in a short while. Keep it here, Spice FM KE. Let us know what you see and we'll spread the word.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have CT Muga,
2.5 minutes after
researcher,
7. This is a
academic,
Situation Room. It's
seasoned
Kenya's
political
biggest conversation. We are in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi. And we are also broadcasting worldwide on www.spicefm.co.ke, as well as Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So, we talked about this in passing at about 6 o'clock when he said we'll be having this conversation at this time about unclaimed financial assets. So, very many people, some alive. Now let's talk about very many people who are alive
Who we think are alive.
have forgotten that they invested something somewhere, bought shares somewhere, deposited some money in a bank somewhere, and then the banks have not seen this person for a long time. The banks say that they have tried to look for this person and they are not tracing this person. Now, by law, they are supposed to hand over some of these unclaimed assets after a certain time to a certain organization. Others, you passed away. There was no proper communication with your, the way Kenyans are. Mali yangu ni yangu. You do not want your children to know exactly what you own.
Bro, you've skipped somewhere.
Wife.
You don't want your wife to know. Children come later.
you do not want wife to have a clue.
That you have an asset somewhere.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, you meet sudden death
boss.
without proper communication. So what happens? Anyway, and that's the reason why now this morning we're joined by John Mwangi. He's the CEO and Managing Trustee of the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming and welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you very much.
Umekuja na pesa kidogo ya. We can claim.
Ya kuondoa baridi.
Wonja.
I wish.
No?
So, did I get that introduction right?
Yes, you got it right. Yes.
What is this that makes people... Let's start with the people who are alive. The people who have died.
That one we can understand.
That one we can understand.
Right.
Let's start with the ones who... Somebody who's alive somewhere
Yes.
and they have not claimed their assets,
Yes.
financial assets.
Yes.
Explain.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, Spice Radio, for hosting me in the studio this morning. I must also admit that I heard about this radio less than a week ago. So life is a learning curve.
Yes.
About unclaimed financial assets, it's good first we begin by the journey of how it came into being. In 2007, 2009, thereabout, the then PS of the National Treasury commissioned a survey or commissioned a task force to find out what is the nature and the extent of these assets in the economy. And when that task force performed their research, they confirmed or came up with the results that there was between 50 to 200 billion worth of unclaimed assets as at then, and only in two sectors of focus. That was the banking sector and the insurance sector. So when they found out whatever results they did, they extrapolated and tried to say, then how much does it equal to in the national economy? And after that, the question then was, how would this monies or how would this regime be dealt like or with? And the conclusion was that let there be a state organization that's going to be formed, and this entity will be mandated with that responsibility of receiving these unclaimed financial assets from the various sectors of the economy, safeguard those assets, that means hold them on trust on behalf of the beneficiaries, and thereafter proactively look for their owners and reunite them with their assets. And that's how the law was enacted in 2011, Unclaimed Financial Assets Act number 40 of 2011. And that's the law that now gave birth to UFAA, Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. And the mandate was, as I've said, receive these unclaimed financial assets from the holders. Holders are the institutions that are across all sectors of the economy. In fact, we say any legally incorporated entity is a potential holder of unclaimed assets. So even Spice FM or Spice Radio, if you are a legal being, then you are a potential holder. Then all these holders, the assets have been defined in the Act. What are these assets that will qualify as Unclaimed Financial Assets Act? And how they come into being is purely through passage of time, where time has lapsed and the holder of this asset is not in touch with their beneficiary. And this time ranges from 1 year, which is the shortest asset class, that means salaries and wages. So if today you leave employment of Spice or wherever you are working, and the employer does not pay your benefits in terms of salaries and wages, in a year's time, that money becomes unclaimed assets. And the longest we have are maybe gift vouchers, which is 5 years period, or bank accounts, a dormant account in a bank, those are 5 years. But bulk of these assets, the qualifying period is 2 years. So you've got maybe pensioners, you retire from employment and you qualify for pension, but within 2 years, your employer doesn't know your whereabouts. So whatever that pension is becomes unclaimed assets. Okay. Also, we have things like dividends and shares if you've invested in listed companies or even unlisted. And for 3 years, the investors or the issuer of that security does not know your whereabouts. Then in 3 years' time, that money becomes unclaimed assets. So what happens that asset becomes unclaimed after passage of time without you being in touch with the holder.
So then, John, it's possible that some people who may be on your list, or some of these institutions who are on your list, it's possible that those individuals actually don't know that they have some assets that are hanging with you.
Very, very, very likely. Very true. Actually, it's one of the main reasons why people have unclaimed assets. One is ignorance. Okay? You just ignore, depending on the nature and the value of the assets. Like an example I gave of dividends. Let's say today, if you want to buy shares in a listed company, you buy them in lots.
Right.
And you can buy any amount. You can buy 1 share, 2 shares, or 3 shares. But when you are selling, you cannot sell in less than 10 units. So if, let's say, you had 19 shares or 15, you can sell 10, but then the balance is called an odd lot. So you exit a counter by selling the shares that you had, but you left 5 shares. Okay, and then you've moved on with life.
Because you can't sell them all.
You cannot sell them all because they are old lots.
So you're encouraged to
essentially
sell
forget
all
about
15.
them.
You're supposed to.
And you can't sell
you
all
can
15.
only
Can't
top
sell.
up, make them 20, so that you sell them in tranches
tens.
of 10s.
Oh, so the denomination, the low denomination is 10
Yeah.
Yes, to sell.
to sell.
Yes, but buying you can buy even 1 or 2 or 3.
Clever.
So
So
what
people
happens?
sell the 10, they don't know about the remaining
They
5.
leave the 5,
And
and
five
those 5
continue
shares continue paying dividends.
Yep.
So again, you forgot about them. So over time, so it's a small lot of 5 shares that you left, but that's one person. So if you maybe say there are 2 million people with that kind of 5 shares, and that is the very nature of unclaimed assets, that at individual level is a trivial amount,
Yeah.
but cumulatively is a huge sums of assets. In fact, that's why we say one of the challenges we have on unification is the very nature of the structure of these assets. Because at your personal level, you find that maybe there were some dividends that came in, there were 10 cents
Yeah.
or 50 shillings. So you send a check, and you look at this check, you look at yourself, you look at the bank, the cost of you going to deposit that check, you're like, forget about it. So that's at to your level is 50 bob.
Did you see yourself sitting? Check. Look at yourself. Look at bank.
There's something else. You look at what those shares cost you.
Yes.
Then look at what you're being offered.
Throw it away.
Ashana nayo. So by that valid nature now, where we are saying at a personal level, they are small, they actually trivial amounts. But cumulatively, it is huge sums of money. So working with that 50 shillings, assuming it's 1 million people, that's 50 million. But the day you come, you not come to claim 50 million. You'll come to claim 50 shillings. So that's a structure, one of the structural issues that we face in terms of paying out these assets to their rightful owners. However, we are grateful as an institution. We've been able to identify that. And we have identified 3 main reasons as to why perhaps bulk of the people, just to come to your question, don't claim their assets. One is awareness. Okay, majority of the people don't know who is UFAA and what is it that UFAA does. Reason being, if you look at 5 years ago when we began our operations, it's not long time. We have institutions here that came into being in 1900 or 1920, 1930, and they're still struggling for people to understand who they are. So for us is that awareness levels in terms of the general public. Who are we and what do we do? Number 2 is the structure of those assets, as I have said. Okay, being that at individual level, they are trivial amounts. And thirdly is the nature of the law. The way the law has been crafted, it is prescriptive as to how we should pay these assets. Because remember, these are monies you're dealing with. And unless there are very clear rules of the engagement, it can easily be abused.
So how should you, can I just ask then, I think that was very interesting that you said that the law is prescriptive then as to how these assets should be paid out. Before we get, how should they be paid out? I mean, it seems that it would be very simple. This is someone's money, locate the individual, pay.
Give them their 10
Give them
cents.
their money.
Why
Would it be any different?
As they say, it's easier said than done. Because if you look at our law, we have got the act that creates us. And then together with that act, we've got regulations. Unclaimed Financial Assets Regulations 2016. That defines how payment should be made out of this fund. Because this is a fund that we are holding. And there are some mandatory forms that one is supposed to fill. Okay? Depending whether you are the primary beneficiary. So this is a Muga or is Ndu or is John. Then you are alive and you are the one coming to claim. There's a path that you're supposed to follow. There's a case where you are claiming this money, but you're not the original owner. You're the beneficiary. The original owner is deceased.
Okay.
So even before you come to claim that money as a beneficiary, you must go through a court process to determine that indeed you are the legal beneficiary of this estate. So again, there's a certain form that you fill to that effect. Thirdly, you could be an institution, a company that is coming to claim these monies. There's a process that you follow. And fourthly, you could be what you call, you've been given the power to claim on behalf of, maybe through what you call the power of attorney. I'm alive, but I have donated my power to a third party who can come and claim on my behalf. So the law prescribes how each of these should happen. And whatever form it is that you fill, that form must be notarized by a commissioner of oath to confirm and authenticate that indeed you're the person coming to claim these monies. And now when you couple that with the trivial amounts that we have in the fund, and that process then becomes a challenge. So, but what you've done, we have gone through our legislation and you've seen what are some of the challenges that our claimants are having in the course of claiming these monies. And we've made some proposals in the change of the law to differentiate this mode of claiming. Because you see, it doesn't matter whether you're claiming 1 shilling or 1 million. That's the path that you have to go through. So we are saying, can we differentiate these claims on the values so that it is easy for people to claim their monies? And we are happy. There was a task force that was formed by the National Treasury to look at the whole of unclaimed assets regime and come up with a revised policy on this regime. That has been done, and we have forwarded that to our National Treasury, our parent ministry. So it's under review. And together with that, we have also sent what called the amendment bill. What you are proposing, can we do these changes in this regime to make it easy for operation, both for the claimants, for ourselves and even for the holders.
Take a quick break, take a look at weather, and then we can come and continue with this conversation. It's a very interesting conversation. We're talking about unclaimed financial assets. And the CEO and managing trustee of the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, John Mwangi, is with us in the studio this morning just to give us, create awareness here and tell us what exactly this means. And then we'll go into questions of how do people claim, what kind of assets are we talking about, what kind of amounts and percentages are we talking about, and then this kind of proposals that you're talking about in the law and in the regulations and the impact that would have. Good morning. It's a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. 16 minutes after 7.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
Mostly cloudy at 15 degrees in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 19 and lows of 12 today, with showers expected early on in the day. And in Nyeri, it's already coming down in light rain showers at 14 degrees. It'll continue for most parts of the day, with highs of 18 and lows of 13. Nakuru at 14 degrees is mostly cloudy, highs of 20 and lows of 12, with showers also expected in the afternoon. It'll be a wet afternoon in Eldoret with thunderstorms. Currently cloudy conditions at 13 degrees. We'll see a high of 18. And in Kisumu at 19 degrees is mostly cloudy, highs of 24 and lows of 18. Kakamega is cloudy at 16 degrees. We'll see thunderstorms later with highs of 21 and lows of 15. It's mostly cloudy in Malindi at 25 degrees. Showers expected early on. Highs of 27 and lows of 24. Clear skies in Mombasa at 24 degrees. Showers expected soon as well. Highs of 27 and lows of 23. It's cloudy in Kampala at 18 degrees. Thunderstorms expected later with highs of 21. And it's expected to see a high of 30 in Dar es Salaam and lows of 21 with showers in the afternoon, where it's mostly cloudy now at 23. It's very chilly in Johannesburg at 1 degree. We'll see highs of 17 and coming down to a low of 1. It will not get lower than that though. Sunny conditions throughout the day. Clear skies and periodic clouds in Lagos at 24 degrees. Highs of 27 and lows of 3 with cloudy conditions in the afternoon.
21 minutes after 7. This is a situation. It's kind of the biggest conversation in the room is Eric Latif, Nduoko, C.T. Muga, and John Mwangi, the Chief Executive Officer and Managing Trustee of the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. He's just given us an introduction and a background of how the authority was formed and the need for it, and now what they've been doing for the last 5 years. And John, you're saying that in terms of identifying the people who need to claim these financial assets and them coming to the process of them claiming, you found that there are some categories that basically, because of how the law has prescribed, it becomes like a barrier. And many people just look at that and see it's too long a process, and now you're proposing that you make it easier for such categories of people so that they are able to actually come and claim their financial assets.
Sure.
What percentage are we talking about of, for example, those that would be affected by, this kind of long, tedious process over small amounts of money?
Okay. Thank you, Eric. If you look at the fund in terms of the structure of how much of these assets have been received, and just to give the background, as you were saying earlier, to date we have received cash of about 16 billion worth of unclaimed assets. And this money is coming from various sectors of the economy. We'll talk about 67% of that coming from the banking industry, then close to about 15% of that money coming from the listed companies. So that will be in form of dividends. Then we have got about 9% of that money coming from the telcos, the telecommunication companies, in terms of mobile monies. And then about 6% of that coming from insurance companies. Then you've got pension and SACCOs combined having less than 1%. So that is the nature of that 16 billion, the makeup of it. We also have received over 800 million units of shares reported as unclaimed financial assets with a current market value of about 26 billion, given the way the stock market has actually been coming down. We have also received assets in form of unit trust. We have received assets in form of safe deposit boxes that all have been reported as unclaimed assets. Now, looking at the structure of the 16 billion, which is the actual cash, and this money is good to say that it is actually sitting in a trust fund account domiciled at Central Bank of Kenya. That's where those funds are held. When you look at the structure of that money, between 0 shillings, because we have as little as 0.1 cents, 0.2 cents, between that and up to 1,000, it makes up over 90% of the potential beneficiaries. So you can see it's a small amount of money, but touching on a huge population of the people.
This is 1,000 and below.
Yes. And in terms of the fund value of the 16 billion, that will account for about 14% of the total fund value. So you can see, and that's why you could hear perhaps people saying that the UFA is not uniting. But now if you look at the 3 factors I said earlier, the issue of the awareness, the issue of those trivial amounts, and what the law prescribes for you to do to be able to access those monies, then becomes a challenge for you to be able to get those monies.
But if, go ahead.
Please.
But then if we're looking at such little amounts, couldn't that be then an explanation as to why people are not coming forward to get this money? Because by the time they look at the process of coming to collect 10 shillings in a check from UFAA, why would I bother?
Yeah, it's true. And that's why you've said this as one of the barriers, the structure of the fund. And that's why in our proposed amendments, we are saying, can we make this process easier? So that the moment you just identify yourself with a basic document like an ID, you don't have to physically come to the office and say, this is John, I have 1,000 bob, I have filled in this form. The lawyer has to stamp that form, which costs you about 500
notarize with the lawyer, that's already cost you all the money that you're going to claim.
It's more than you even have in that you're going to claim.
Exactly. So we are saying, can we differentiate these amounts, and can we follow a different mode of verification? And with the advancement in our financial sector in terms of telecommunication, advancements in technology, mobile monies, that the moment you identify yourself in a basic way, are we able to send that money to you without you necessarily having to incur all that cost?
In fact, that gadget that you use for sending money in itself can be an identifier.
Yes, it can be.
It's just that it's not considered a legal identifier.
Exactly.
In some cases, but I'm listening to this and I'm listening to how would make it easy for people to come and claim this money. And I'm also seeing this is a very good opportunity and a loophole for people to come and steal this money. Because look, we are talking about, yes, it's less than 1,000 shillings, it's 500, it's 400, but it's 90% of the beneficiaries, 16% of the total value. This is a lot of money we are talking about.
For sure.
Now, if somebody just comes and presents an ID, and we know how people come and present IDs in this country, and they are able to get this 500 bob, what prevents me from sitting somewhere and just coming up with IDs and sending people to UFAA?
It's true. Thank you, Eric. Because for us, when you are proposing this legislation, it's a multi-pronged kind of an approach. In fact, right now, we are also working closely with the telcos to say that if your monies have been reported and you have your number in the database.
Yep.
Because remember, one of the reasons why us has become unclaimed is that you lost touch
Contact.
with your holder. And in the past, the issue of KYC was very minimal. You could just walk in a shop and come out with a SIM card. You could just go in a bank and open a bank account by just saying, I'm John M. And there you have an account. Now, before, the issue of KYC was not very seriously considered when one was opening an account. Now, that now contributes to these unclaimed assets. Because now, if today you receive money, it's John M. Now, you can imagine, for heaven's
How many
sakes,
John
How many
M's?
John M's are there?
M's are there. And then you go to the holder. One of the reasons why they did not find you, because the law requires under Section 19 that before the institution remits that money to UFA, they must demonstrate that they looked
they
for
have
you,
tried.
To get you.
and to the best of ability, they could not get in touch with you.
So what makes it then, John, that if this institution, who is the holder institution, could not find this individual, how are we then convinced that UFAA will find them?
That's a good question. The question happens is, first of all, was there an incentive for these guys to look for you?
That was work. That was basically.
It is, you see, also if you look from the holder's point of view, this is free working capital.
Yeah.
The more I don't find you,
The more I have
the
cash,
better
yeah.
it is for me
At least
to
for 2 years.
keep on trading with these monies.
Yeah.
But that notwithstanding, we are saying that there was no that legal requirement on their part to look for you and pay you your money. But now when the law came, and one thing we like about our law is that it is retrospective in nature. Because most of these assets fall in the past.
Yeah.
Because as we move forward with the advancement in technology, in KYC, we don't expect most of these assets to accumulate. But in the past, that's where you have got bulk of these assets. And that's why the law says that it is retrospective. Although the law was passed in 2011, it applies even before that. So what we are saying is that we are trying to, and the holders now, assuming now it was John did not have a mobile phone then.
Yep.
Okay? But today, John has a mobile phone.
How far back does it go?
When you talk of retrospective, it is, now you go to the holder.
So there's no limit.
There's no limit of to how back it goes.
As long as you have something, you're holding something and you do not know whose it belongs to.
Exactly.
Hand it over.
Two questions I wanted to ask.
Yes.
One, among the people who could be possible claimants, do you have people who expect pension from NSSF?
We have not received reports from NSF on unclaimed financial assets, but we have received unclaimed assets in form of pensions from other institutions.
From other institutions.
But not NSSF.
NSF has not filed the reports with the authority yet.
Okay. What about from government agencies that probably deal with absentee landlords? Because if there's an absentee landlord over a period of time, they will usually... The fact that they're a landlord means that's an asset that may not have someone claiming it. Do you have assets coming from the government being brought to you? Do you have government agencies reporting this?
Yes, we do have government agencies that have reported on unclaimed financial assets. But one thing to appreciate, Muga, is that our law is restricted to financial assets. So we don't deal with non-financial assets. So land, buildings, motor vehicles will be out of our purview. Because even as per the law, we are unclaimed financial.
So it only deals with basically cash.
Cash and near cash.
Okay.
Yes.
So back to the question that Ndu was asking. This organization was not able to identify John M.
Yes.
And it's holding some money that belongs to John M.
Yes.
Money is sent over to UFAA.
Yes.
How does UFAA find John M?
Very good. So what we have done, if you look at this 16 billion that we have received, because we get reports, what the law requires is that you compile this report as at 30th of June of every calendar year, and you report that money and the beneficiaries to the authority on or before 1st of November of every year. So when these monies come, the holder is supposed to notify you in form of writing that John M. will try looking for you. We can't find you. This is dividends that were declared 3 years ago, and they are due to be reported to unclaimed financial assets. So if you don't see you by this time, we are going to file this report. And therefore, when you come, you'll not come to us, you'll go to the authority. So when the money comes to us, what we have done for all those monies that we have received, if you go to our website, www.ufaa.go.ke, we have uploaded all those names that have been reported to us. Okay, so if you go to our website and you key in and you search maybe Eric, but maybe perhaps your second name or Muga, you will see all the Mugas that have come. Then it's up to you to see what's your second name, what's your postal address. So those are some of the indications that you get. Now, once you get that, the next thing is that we'll tell you where did this money come from. So maybe you'll say this is a dividends that came from counter X. Okay? So now for you now, when you come to claim, you have to tell us that, yes, I'm so-and-so. I got this letter from my registrar telling me that I had this amount of shares or dividends, and they have come. And this is the report. My name was appearing in this report. Then I'm able to verify your identity as your full name. We're able to get in touch with the holder and confirm that, yes, indeed, this is a guy who came. But by that time, the guy had no phone. So if by now you have the phone, you're able to verify also through the mobile telcos that indeed this is so-and-so. And then that way we're able now to pay you. So there's a lot of rigorous verification process that we carry out internally and in partnership with other government agencies.
Okay.
So that we make sure we pay the right person.
So that's all is going to answer that the other question that I asked earlier of how you can just verify that somebody coming with an ID claiming to be Eric Latif is the one that actually had some shares somewhere in some collapsed organization. 27 minutes to 8 o'clock. Let's take another break. Take a look at traffic. We have in the studio this morning John Mwangi, the Chief Executive Officer and Managing Trustee of the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. And basically he's telling us there are very many people who do not know that they have some unclaimed financial assets, and they need to know so that they can go and claim. And also, now we'll talk about the people who are deceased and what happens about that. Let's take a look at traffic. Good morning.
All right, police along Wayakiwe at Udhiru stage. It's holding up traffic today. It's been there ever since 6 a.m. And I guess they should be directing it, but guys are saying there's a problem here because it's slowing it down, actually. So let's see what that looks like in a short while. But you need to know that you're going to need a dab of patience in that area. Right there at Museum over the bridge is not looking so bad either. Traffic is flowing very smoothly along Mombasa Road today. As you get to Cabanas and then just before General Motors, it slows down just a little bit, but you'll be fine. Juja Road, easy flow from Outer Ring. Use the highway, then the underpass, and use the exit just after the flyover, because the highway is chock-a-blocked this morning. So those are the parts that we see we have a bit of an issue. Apart from that, everything seems to be flowing well. Spice of MKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see, where you might be stuck or where you find an alternate route. Let us know and we'll share that with everybody else.
Twenty-four minutes to 8 o'clock. In the situation this morning is John Mwangi, the CEO and Managing Trustee of the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. So, John, we have dealt with people who are alive and you're able to trace them.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about people who are deceased.
Thank you, Eric. And there are two ways you can find out if you have unclaimed assets. One is through the website, as I've said, www.ufaa.go.ke. The other way is through your USSD code, *361#. It's also another way that you can find out if you have unclaimed financial assets. And through that method, you'll have to register yourself. And you have to give factual information. Because what happens is that one of the requirements they ask for you is your ID card. And if you give a faulty ID card, then you don't be able to allow to access in our database.
So, CT, use the USSD and then I use the website.
Sure.
By the end of this show,
Yes.
money will be here.
You're most welcome. Now, for the deceased cases, yes, as I told you, what happens is that the law does require that you can only pay death benefits to a legal beneficiary. Okay? Now, what happens is that it is not our duty or the responsibility of UFAA to identify the legality of the beneficiary. So the aspect of identifying the legal beneficiary is the responsibility of the courts of law.
Okay.
So you have now to go and carry out that process separately and confirm that, yes, I'm John and I'm the administrator of the estate of Muga. And the courts have given you that responsibility. So when you are coming to claim on behalf of, that is a death benefits, and you claim through Form 4B, then you're supposed to demonstrate to us that you've got those confirmed grants, okay, that the courts have issued that, and they have confirmed that indeed you are the legal beneficiary. So, and again, that portends another barrier, because most of this nature of our culture, as I heard you saying in the studio before I came in, most people don't want to say what they have, and rightly so, because in some instances you can be discounted into from future value to present value, and depending on how much you are holding, the question will be: are you better off alive, or
Are you an asset or a liability?
So it's a cultural issue that perhaps we have to deal with it as we move with the time.
You can be made an ancestor.
Real fast. There's money
You
involved.
can be converted
absolutely.
into an asset.
Yes. So because of that fear, and perhaps because of what you go through to accumulate those assets, most of the founders of these assets are not quick or at ease to disclose what is it that they have. And because of that, somebody dies, but the beneficiary does not know that this guy had a lot of money in the bank account. This guy had lots of shares. This guy had taken an insurance policy, and nobody knew about it. So because of that, then guys don't know whether they should go to courts of law and get these assets being administered. But we are happy because if you look at Kenyan law, we've got the Office of Public Trustee, and those people with less than $500,000, 500,000 shillings and below, or an estate of less than $500,000, you can actually use the Public of Trustee at free cost, and you're able to get those letters of administration. Because again, going to the court process is not only costing in matters of time, but also in money. It costs you to get those letters. So for death beneficiaries, there's that other secondary function that takes process outside us. but it is very important as part of our mandatory requirement for us to pay you.
Office of Public Trustee.
Yes.
Where are they based?
Office of Public Trustee is based in AG's office. So for those people with estate of less than $500,000, they can actually get that service free from that office. And once they get those administration letters, they can have them confirmed by actually courts, and you can use that to launch your claim.
Okay. John, you're currently asking Kenyans to come, or asking people to come and claim this money. And I'm still going to go back to that. I mean, just the court process that you're talking about, swearing an affidavit here, doing the other thing back and forth. And as you're met with what you call challenges and barriers, would it then go beyond a certain time? If these individuals are not coming forth, what happens? Already looking at the barriers that could stand in the way, and these are the problems that you would face. After certain time has lapsed, when would you basically throw in the towel?
Okay, thank you, Ndu, for that. What our law prescribes is that once these assets are reported to the authority, they are held in trust in perpetuity.
Okay.
So there's no defined time period that after which you lose your asset. Okay? So we hold this money for you in forever.
What happens if no one claims it?
That's why the law as it is now, it prescribes that maybe you are the principal owner, you've died, you are first generation, that's your children. Can still claim.
And they start this whole
This is where the
fund process
perpetuity
all
comes
over
in.
again.
Exactly.
There's no issue of what happens if someone doesn't claim it.
Exactly. It's held in trust.
Somebody is able to claim on the behalf of another individual.
So even your
should
great
death come
grandchildren
in.
can claim.
Exactly.
So they still have to face the dance of all of this still, though.
Yeah,
whole
they have to
process of
prove
going
that
to
they're the
claim
legal
and-
owners. Yes.
So it seems to me that you're still going round and about, John.
The problem, though, is that
Because
it's not appreciating in value.
Yes, it is not, and
If
that's
you
the
received 100 shillings,
yes,
it stays as 100 shillings.
10 years down
Exactly.
the line, it's 100 shillings.
exactly. In fact, you should first thank God
That there's 100
that your 100 bob never
It's safe.
disappeared. Because in most cases,
Wow.
before the law came into being, those assets.
You know what is of interest, as you're saying, I'll think of diminishing. If your money is in, say, an account in the bank,
Yes,
simply because of bank charges,
exactly.
that amount will diminish.
Oh, yes.
In those 2 years, the money that John is receiving is not the money that you left.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
It'll have gone.
And if it's there for 10 years, they might even ask you to pay them.
Exactly.
Is there no opportunity for the fund to invest this money in safe securities?
Yes, the law has given us that responsibility, that for those funds that we have not found the owners, for the time being, we can invest those funds in a way that any trust fund can invest.
Yeah.
So it's allowed by law. And for us right now, we have a policy in place that allow us to place these funds in government securities. Because remember, whatever security we invest in must have that inherent characteristic of preserving the capital.
Yep.
Okay, in that whatever day you come, your 100 shillings is guaranteed.
Still guaranteed.
So that's why for now you've placed them into government securities. And whatever
Interest accrued?
investment that accrues from that, remember there is a cost of reunification. Okay, remember for you to come, it's not just the 100 shillings, it's the cost of paying you back that 100 shillings. But the law requires that we don't charge you any cent for us to reunite you.
With your own money.
Exactly.
I would
So
be-
So it's the money that you're making from those investments
that
that is
now
paying.
becomes the cost of reunification.
Okay.
But we cannot use a cent of that money without approval from the CS National Treasury.
Okay. I'd be interested to know then what kind of activities you're carrying out to trace some of these individuals. Because, I mean, now you talk about 16 billion shillings. That's quite a lot of money. And even if we're looking at the times in which we currently are, that's some money that could be used for some fantastic things in terms of development for this country. So what are some of the things then that you're involved in, or some activities that you then plan to get a hold of some of these individuals? Could be CT Muga. We'll find out at the end of this hour if his money is sitting there. But I mean, what are other things that, apart from a USSD code that you could use, what are some other things that you're doing to try and get hold of these folks?
Thank you. We have actually multi-pronged initiatives that we are deploying to reach to as many claimants as possible. One of them is that we've partnered with the Ministry of Interior and National Coordination through what we call National Government Administrators, or the NGAOs. And that's all the way from the regional commissioner all the way to the sub-chief, the village elders in the village. And what we've done is that for those names that we have received, and they have said their addresses where they live, we've given those names to the ministry. And through the partnership that we have with the ministry, we are actually on the ground trying to tell you that if you're so-and-so, please, certain assets have been reported to you. Please follow this process to claim your monies. So that's one, partnership with the government institution. Number two, we have signed MOUs with various regulators, okay, as our peers, and is actually provided for in our act. And what we are telling these regulators is that as you go about sensitizing the public on your mandate, please also notify the public of UFAA, okay, and that we've got unclaimed assets here that we are looking for the owners. In fact, we are so proud of ourselves because we are the only government agencies that looks for you and tells you, hey, you guys,
We have your
government has some mullah for you. Please, please, come forward and and claim this. So we've got those partnerships with the other regulators. We have also partnered with media houses. A lot of campaigns we are doing to sensitize the public. We are partnering with the telcos to see how do we reach as many people as possible in accessing these unclaimed financial assets.
Do I hear you say that you are going to partner with us to also do the same thing?
Oh, for sure. Even this is a partnership.
This is a
It's
partnership.
a good partnership we are having now, because for the listeners of Spice, they now know we have unclaimed assets. You can check if you have some. And we'll
This
be
is
glad
how
to
you
tell
check. All right. So from wherever you are, just dial star 361 hash. Star 361 hash. It's going to take you through a process of registration where you have to enter your name, your ID, and some other information. Once you've done that, then you can now go and check whether you're in the database of those that UFAA is looking for. Maybe it has your 100,000 shillings or maybe 2 million
That could be
that
the
you
savior.
forgot, you know?
There's the pin drop.
Just had some money somewhere that you forgot. CT, have you done that? I'm in the process of
Oh,
doing
me,
that.
I've done.
Okay.
I've done.
So
but-
you'll be checking
No,
shortly.
no.
You'll let us know.
No, that's a tedious process. I'm just. See, John Wang is here. I'm just going to.
Information is power. And the same kind of thing that we are doing this morning is what the Kenya Port Authority is also doing through kpa.co.ke/cargo. They have an information portal because they realize that there is services that KPA offers. And if you go to kpa.co.ke/cargo, there we're looking at the service charter.
Right. So, I mean, general standards that KPA is going to follow can also be found on the portal. And one of those is that it's a 24/7 port service, except on the 1st of May and the 25th of December, which are now obviously public holidays. And you will be aware that when you're in the port, when you're talking to these individuals, CT, who are bringing in your PPEs, when they're individuals, if you actually are presenting yourself at the port and you get down there, everybody's going to wear a badge. Now, granted, we know that there's some unscrupulous individuals who might make a badge, but all right. Everybody's going to have a name badge, and you know that they work for the port, and you'll be sure that you will get services within a safe working environment. The portal is giving us access to that information. And there are also standards for port operations that are going to be followed to the letter. 100% availability of aids to navigation. You will be helped. Pilotage, tug, and mooring services within 30 minutes. Discharge and loading within 1 hour of mooring. The container vessel and general cargo vessel or car carrier.
Mooring is parking.
Yes.
So when
Mooring is parking of a vessel.
When the ship is parked.
Yes.
One of these days, we need to look into this.
Discharge
jargon.
and loading, 1 hour. Yeah, I think we should do that one
Yeah,
day.
this jargon. Mooring. Yesterday was
Wharf.
No. Yesterday was
Stevedoring.
Steve
Doring,
Doring.
yes.
Yes.
Yes, that's yes.
So
Cargo
And
handling.
today is unclaimed.
And-
so there you go.
kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo. 10 minutes to 8. At 8 minutes to 8 o'clock, we still have in the studio this morning John Mwangi. He's the CEO and managing trustee of the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. So as Siti and I continue this registration
Trying to figure
process,
this thing out.
we are here. We are trying to register so that we can give us our money.
Yes. And just to inspire and encourage you, please, money is money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in my mother tongue, we only say the only bad thing is a button. That can't buy you anything.
Wow.
For those that speak your mother tongue and they don't know this, just say it in your mother tongue.
Kido kido no kifugo.
Okay. So the
Now,
enemy here
what-
is the kifugo. Yes.
What we are saying is that whatever little it is your money. And for us, there's nothing as fulfilling for us as paying you with that 10 bob, 100 shillings, whatever it is, that's your money. And because of the challenges being portended by the COVID-19 virus, we are all cautious. And one of the ways in which the virus actually spreading is through contamination with the documents.
Right.
So what we've done as an authority, we have a portal. If you go to that same website, you are able to actually find if you have unclaimed assets, and you're able to launch your claim actually through the same process.
Yep.
Only that will be required to have those documents filled, then you scan them through the portal, and if they have been duly filled, duly certified as they are, and you have the monies, you give us your bank account or your SACCO account, or even your mobile account. Right now, at least we have done with the M-Pesa. We are able to pay you through M-Pesa. We are touching with Airtel Money, also to be able to have the same infrastructure in place. And you can actually be able to launch your claim end-to-end without you having to come all the way to bring your documents to
the
Nairobi,
office.
wherever you are, at the comfort of your desk.
Are there people you are paying or people you have paid so far?
Yeah.
So
in the last
many.
5
In the
years,
last
how
5 years.
much have you paid?
Yeah, so far in the last 5 years, we've been able to receive claims worth about 800 million in terms of the throughput, what has come through, from a population of about 10,000 people. And of that, we've been able to pay close to 5,000 people with over 430 million
Okay.
of their assets.
Okay.
So we have a success story.
And
on
what's the delay in the remaining? Could be false claims, other things. What?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, most of them is that most of this, see, remember the law was passed in 2011?
11,
Yeah.
yes.
The first compliance period was in 2014 because after the law was enacted, there had to be a board in place. The board was appointed in 2012. The board met in 2013. Then in 2014 is when they got some staff from Treasury to hold brief as the institution is being created. So the first compliance period was in 2014. And I can tell you the compliance period was for November 1st, but by June 30th, there were over 400 million claims launched from an institution.
I'm sorry, 400
400
million
million.
shillings or
Yes.
400 million claims?
400 million claims worth 400 million.
Okay,
Oh,
claims
okay.
worth 400
Yes.
million. All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
But remember that time, there's no authority. It's only some staff in Treasury who are holding brief.
Right.
There are no processes and procedures on how a claim will be
The
processed.
processed.
There were no regulations in place to expound on the law. So until 2016 is where now the regulations came into being. And that's when we paid the first claim.
Okay.
So you can see already we had a lot of claims that had come before the regulations were put in place.
Right.
But when regulations came in place, what they required and what those claims had provided, there was a mismatch.
They didn't match.
They
right.
did not match, yes. So we had to go back to all those guys and tell them, hey, you guys, we had gotten your letter here telling us you want your money, but the law requires you have to fill in this form, you have to give us your ID certified, you have to give us all these details, and our process are so defined.
Okay.
You know, there's something that comes to mind as we're talking about shares. Huh?
Yes.
At the time when maybe my shares were lodged with your unit as being unclaimed, maybe the value of that share was 20 shillings.
Yes,
Now, that is not the value.
exactly.
So, what are you going to pay me?
For the shares, what we'll do, we haven't, the law requires that these shares, when they are reported, because our work is not fund management, our work is not to manage a portfolio of shares
no.
and proactively trade in them to make value for you. Our mandate is that these shares were abandoned. They were once lost. But now they have been found. And they have been found at UFA for Muga. So what we do is that you are given 100 shares from, say, Counter X under your name.
It's the number of shares.
It is the units of shares that will give you.
Okay.
It's not the value.
It's not the value. The value can be either way. Could have gone up or down.
Okay.
So there's the units, the number of shares, and also the dividends
Yes,
that still you haven't claimed.
exactly, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, a lot of information. Remember, if you'd like to know whether you have any assets that you have not claimed, just dial star 361 hash, and that's star 361 hash, or you can go to the website www.ufaa.go.ke. You will find a tab there written Unclaimed Assets, and under that you'll find Claimant, and under Claimant you'll do Start Claiming. When you click Start Claiming, you'll register yourself. I've done all these things, and I'm talking out of experience.
Fantastic.
You
Thank
put in
you.
your full name, your ID, and your email, and then it sends you an email to verify, and I'm in the process of verifying. By the end of this day, John,
You have your mullah, man.
uh,
We hope you
yeah,
have, because you see, you cannot claim what you don't have.
I
So
must have something.
Something.
If I don't have, I'll come and camp.
Money is money. What was that phrase at the button?
The only thing that is worthless is a
It's a
button.
button.
Eric,
Faith.
this is asset recovery.
no, unclaimed.
This is unclaimed financial asset.
I've been corrected. Now I want to explain something to Eric. That's why I went that route. It's not charity sweepstakes.
It's not a lottery.
Oh, John, thank you very much for coming. Just to recap, he's telling us that they're holding 16 billion shillings worth of unclaimed financial assets. 67% of these came from banks, about 15% from stocks. That's at the Nairobi Securities Exchange, 9% from telco companies, 6% from insurance companies, and about 1% or below from pension and SACCOs. Yeah. Hey, this is a lot. Also, you're holding 800 million shares valued at about 26 billion shillings. Quite some huge amount of money, a bulk of which 90% of this is in 1,000 shilling and below. And that's why you have a lot of work to do.
Sure.
Wish you all the best. When we talk at the end of this interview, utaniachia pesa yangu tu hapa. CT can donate his money to future generations because clearly does not want to. But anyway, CT, as we do, top of the hour, today's proverb.
It is the heart of one who is afraid that never learns to dance.
Cannot add you one.
Seems you have some heavy proverbs. John Wang.
Proverbs in Mistari too. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
It's a
John.
guy called Ray Dalio.
Yes.
Ray Dalio is one of the serious investors in US. He has got a company called Bridgewater Company. If you've ever heard about that. So he says that time is like a river that carries us forward into encounters with reality that require us to make decisions. We cannot avoid our movement along this river. We cannot stop our movement along this river, and we cannot avoid those encounters. The only thing we can do is to approach them in the most best possible way.
I'm seeing.
Thank you very much, John, for coming.
Thank you very much.
Asante.
Our request to Kenyans, you can add time. Please check. You could have 1 bob, could have 1,000 shillings, whatever it is.
can help.
Please,
Your
we'll be
money.
happy as UFA to help our fellow Kenyans in these difficult times. Please come forward for your money, and we'll do our best to pay you.
Kitumbaya
And thank you very
Kifongo.
much, Spice. Yeah, Kitumbaya ni Kifungo.
Asante sana.
8
Thank you very much.
Good morning.
All right, looking at a bit of traffic on Langata Road heading towards the CBD today. It'll hold up right around the T-Mall roundabout and also coming down past KWS, a little bit hold up there, but you'll get through well enough. All right, Wayaki, we at the Udhuru Strait, still a bit of a hold up. It's moving along slowly. There are police on the road that are contributing to this slow-moving traffic. On Outer Ring, it's actually looking still very good. And along Jogo Road, getting to the City Stadium roundabout, it's not too terrible there either, as you're trying to get into the CBD. It's looking really good wherever we look at it today. Not much on Mombasa Road either, just the normal, usual suspects. If anything falls out of the ordinary, we will be sure to let you know. Spice FM KE, not to forget, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. If it gets a little crazy in your neck of the woods, let us know, and we will see if we can find an alternative for you, or at least keep you company while you wait.
102.5 Spice FM. Kisumu. Traffic. This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political,
3
engaging,
minutes after
deep,
8 o'clock,
controversial.
It's
In the room,
biggest
we
conversation,
have...
and the conversation continues, broadcasting from Nairobi to Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi, to where are we? In
Nairobi.
Myanmar, Yangon.
Oh, right.
Where are we also? In
Oh, you see, where else are we?
yeah,
We're also in Belgium.
to Belgium,
To Qatar?
to Qatar, everywhere. www.spicefm.co.ke and SpiceFM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Now, let's have a conversation on media and the media landscape and what's happening to the media industry. As we discussed today, the newspapers on their deathbed. This conversation has been there for a while, over a decade now, newspapers on their deathbed. What's for a fact is that the circulation numbers for newspapers have dwindled over the years. What also is there for a fact is because of various factors, including that circulation and including competing interests, the revenues generated by newspapers have also reduced. But let's have that conversation. And joining us now in the Situation Room on the hot seat is Clay Muganda. Clay is a writer and editor with the Standard Group. Clay, karibu sana.
Thank you. I didn't know that this is the hot seat.
It's a hot seat. Yeah. And that's like, come to the mic. Come to the mic. Come to the mic. Closer.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
okay.
That's okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. Now
Yeah,
that this
good,
is
good.
the hot seat.
This is what happens here. So we have, had this conversation very many times in terms of, the fate of the newspaper. We're not talking about media. We're talking about print media in this particular case, the newspaper. When we had the media conversation the other day, we had in the studio here the CEO of the Standard Group, Orlando Liomu, and on the line was the chairman of Radio Africa Group, which publishes the Star newspaper. And when we asked that question of what's happening to, especially the newspaper industry, there was something that the two gentlemen agreed. Also in the studio was Churchill Otieno from the Nation Media Group. But the two gentlemen agreed that the fortunes of newspapers are changing. But because of these changes in the fortunes of the newspapers, there's something that we are also noticing, that when you move into digital space, revenues go down. When you look at a paper, this is if you see a full page ad on a paper, the amount of money that full page ad on a paper is generating, it'll take you so much to generate the same on the digital platforms. And this is something that the media owners and media managers are having to grapple with. But there's also the other effect to journalism. Very many media houses across the globe, because of all these now dwindling fortunes, are having to let go of journalists. What's your take on the whole scape?
Okay, fine. Of course, yes, with the entry of social media, there was bound to be a disruption. And I think the only way probably to keep up, or the only way to stay afloat, was to either change very fast or probably try to keep up. And that's why you find that some media houses have decided to go like digital first. Yeah, okay, fine. In the Kenyan situation, there are actually a number of factors that actually have led to the dwindling fortunes of newspapers as we know it, the physical paper. And it's not just the physical paper alone that is actually affected in Kenya. It is basically like the whole media landscape is hemorrhaging, it's suffering. And it's not, it's a number of factors. Some of them is actually also the poor economy, because I believe in some countries, media is just doing fine. I mean, better than us. There's the issue of the economy. Then there's this also another thing that at some point, Kenyans just started hating the mainstream media. And it's not that social media is offering any alternative, because we keep on hearing that, social media is taking over. But social media does not write itself, because Kenyan media houses or Kenyan newspapers actually have a very big presence on the digital space too. Yeah. But back to why newspapers are probably going, like the fortunes are dwindling, the disruption caused by social media, where actually there were stronger or rather bigger outlets, bigger digital media outlets, or the ones that actually managed to monetize their content much faster than the newspapers. And like in Kenya also, as he said, that I think a full page ad in the newspaper is upwards of maybe 3 million. It depends on the day. Yeah, it depends on the day and also the publication. And you cannot get that in the Kenyan digital space. But there are places where actually digital space can actually attract that much money. Yeah, for an ad. So the economy affects both sides, both the physical and the digital space. Yeah, and I think this is not my biggest problem, or actually our biggest problem has been there is an antipathy or some hatred, towards the mainstream media. That one actually has played a very big role.
This is across the globe?
No, I'm talking about Kenya. Yeah, there's that antipathy also against the mainstream media, and it has come in the form of punitive legislation, and actually just a statement by the president like gazeti ni ya kufunga nyama. That's good enough to actually sway his followers, and they just feel like, okay, fine, we don't need these things anymore.
Yeah.
And I think also we took a little bit some time to adapt. Yeah.
To move fast. Let me bring in Peter Kimani, who's on the line. Peter Kimani is a journalist and author of The Dance of the Jacaranda, a New York Times notable book of the year. Peter, good morning. Are you there?
Yes.
So, Peter, you've heard what Clay has introduced as his perspective of what's happening to the print media in Kenya and in the world. What's your perspective of the same?
Sure.
Yeah, what's your perspective of this?
Okay. Good morning.
Morning.
Yes, I am.
All right, I think we are not able to communicate quite clearly with Peter. You wanted to ask Clay a question.
Right, so I'm looking at what you've prescribed, Clay, in this, that, there's a general antipathy towards mainstream media in Kenya. Does that then affect the evolution then of media then from, a physical paper to a digital form, whereby in other countries, right off the bat, as this was introduced, people began to subscribe to the paper on their phone or on their tablet or whatever, realizing that this was the way in which, that part of the world was moving. So does the sentiment within a geographical boundary of the media then affect the evolution of the same to another platform?
Yeah, I did mention that we did take long actually to evolve, or rather to move to that digital space. And by we taking long to move to that digital space, it's not just the media alone, because it's even the readership. Very many years ago, over 10 years ago, Pulse, the standard publication on Friday, tried to actually put a paywall on their site.
Yep.
The first people to complain were Kenyans in the diaspora.
Yep.
So we have this thing about like it's online, it's supposed to be free. Yeah, so even that one of people actually seeing that I need to buy this, that one also became a problem. The initial bloggers, people who were quite big during that time, they could not monetize even their own content. Yeah, it was very difficult to monetize. So that one also played a big role in actually making the media not move to the digital space at faster than the other countries did, or at that same speed. So the media itself took long to move to that digital space. Probably they needed to move to that place and let people know, like, this is the way to go. But also the readers also took time to adopt. Yeah, adapt to that.
If we talk about that, if we look globally, all media houses initially struggled with the concept of the paywall, because the approach was that because I've been selling you the paper at 60 shillings, a hard copy, I'm going to sell you 60 shillings newspaper on soft copy. Or if you're going to access any of my stories, you have to come and pay to read the story. And if you look at that, there has been an evolution on how various publications are now running around their paywalls. Some are offering specific content that you now subscribe to, specific content that you get, and you pay a certain amount just for the kind of content that you want. And which allows you now to access more and more information from various publications for the same amount of money. I think it's all about how the managers are approaching this paywall concept.
Yeah, but you also have to understand, like, it's taken also some time for the technology to get to this place of smartphones. I think like the first time smartphones came, phones came to Kenya, mobile phones, mobile telephony. For around 3 or 4 or 5 years, we just had the normal phones, The most you could do was text. But then as technological advance, then you get to all these things, like now you can share a newspaper, you can read your newspaper on the go, you can access it, it's easily accessible. So I think even in those other countries also, it was this moving from the physical to the digital space. I think almost probably everywhere it was not fast enough, or probably we did not know how to go about it. Yeah, I think either one came too fast, like here the smartphones came too fast, and the other industry was not ready, or they still did not know how actually to move ahead, to move in tandem with the advances in this technology where you can get everything on your phone. Yeah, I believe probably that's where we maybe dropped the ball. Yeah.
Do you think that there would be an appetite for consumption? Let's say it was widespread. You talked about mobile telephony and then the acceptance of people then, reading a newspaper digitally. Because if you want to compare with Europe, before I get to that question, if you want to compare with Europe and look at major newspapers like The Sun and Le Croix and then the Washington Post and such, what they did was that you had access to a headline, and if you wanted to read the rest of the story, then they asked you to then pay for it. But this is against the backdrop of the fact that so much else was already in the digital space for consumption, whether it was media, whether it was other things, shopping, and the e-commerce had already burst through. So here, as we're looking at things now, do you think that there's adequate consumption then for media practitioners to say we're going to make sure that all of this content is available and we would be sure that it would be consumed?
First of all, what is the penetration? What is our target audience here? Okay, most of our relatives probably now, even our grandmothers, and they have smartphones or mobile phones. Or the normal phone, not just a smartphone. But then we have to ask what percentage of our readership actually will feel the urge, like, let me go and check the news on the phone.
Right.
Yeah, let me go and watch TV on the phone. Because there are very many factors there are very many things that you have to factor in. There is airtime. Yeah,
there's data.
There's data. That one also needs to be factored in. While it's probably easier in towns or in cities or probably in Nairobi for the young to access it, And you see here is a case where you're trying to reach the farmer down there in Konoin, You want to reach the poultry guy somewhere in Mandera, you get. And this is somebody actually who is probably on the move and needs something like this, needs to get his news or her news on the phone. But what is their level of digital literacy in as much as he's aware that actually I can get my news on the phone? That is something that actually I think we're not probably looking at, or probably we are glossing over it and thinking that Nairobi is Kenya or Nairobi is the whole
this
country.
Conversation continues because we'll also come and ask the same question. Is that farmer buying 17 minutes after 8? Let's take a look at the weather and then we'll come back and continue the conversation. We have in the studio Unclaimed Uganda. He's a writer and editor of the Standard Group. We also have on the line Kimani, the journalist and author of Dance of the Uganda. Well, living the same book, but also a science and journalist. And we'll also be joined by Vera O'Carey, the children of the on the line as well. The conversation this morning, how do you prepare for that? What's the fate of print media, especially in Kenya? Good morning.
All right, let's take a look at the skies in Nairobi at 15 degrees. It's mostly cloudy. We'll see rains coming in later with highs of 19 and lows of 12. Nyeri at 14 degrees. The rain has already begun to come down. Highs of 19 and lows of 13. Likelihood to see those wet conditions carry on through into the Friday. Same in for Nakuru at 14 degrees. Showers expected soon enough. Highs of 20 and lows of 12. Light rain showers being experienced in Eldoret. We'll see thunderstorms later with highs of 18 and lows of 12. Mostly cloudy conditions in Kisumu, turning into a wet afternoon with highs of 24 and lows of 19. It's cloudy in Kakamega at 17 degrees. We'll see highs of 21 and lows of 15 with rainy conditions in the afternoon. It's 26 degrees and mostly cloudy in Malindi. We'll see showers later on with highs of 27 and lows of 24, and they're likely to get quite heavy well into the evening. In Mombasa, 24 degrees currently and mostly cloudy. Also wet and heavy conditions of rain later with highs of 27 and lows of 23. We'll take a peek into Kampala, where light rain showers also have begun, and we'll go to graduate to thunderstorms later with highs of 21 and lows of 18. In Dar es Salaam, it's mostly cloudy at 24 degrees. We'll see highs of 30 and lows of 21. And in Joburg, still rather chilly this morning, but mostly sunny, interestingly enough, at 1 degree. We'll see highs of 17 and lows of -1. In Lagos, 24 degrees and clear skies. Cloudy conditions later with highs of 27 and lows of 23.
Minutes after 8, having a conversation in the situation room this morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads. You're listening to Spice FM.
dance of the Jacaranda. Peter, good morning. Yeah, we can hear you now. It'll be better. So the conversation that we're having is with regards to the state of the print media, specifically print media.
Mature,
And,
intelligent talk
over the years,
every morning.
across
Spice
the
up
globe,
yourself.
The issue of whether print media is going to survive in the digital age has been a global discussion and a global debate that we're having this morning. So as we were going into the commercial break, Clay, you were giving that comparison of what a print media offers and the target audience for a print media and the consumers of print media versus the consumers of digital media, digital platforms. And you're saying that those two are different.
Yeah, I would tend to think so, because what happens is, you see, most people in the cities or these technologically savvy young men and women are more likely probably to check their phone and see what's going on when they want to check the news and all that.
Yeah.
Those people down there who probably have the knowledge that they can, but they still tend to think like, okay, nitasoma gazeti,
So are you saying that is the only left audience for newspapers?
I don't think it is the only left audience per se, but I'm just saying that what is going on is that the younger people are more likely. They're older people. I mean, I am old myself. I read my news online. You see, the younger people, some of them don't actually even read news either online or in the newspaper.
But you see, Clay, the industry you're in makes it easier for you to keep up with technology. There are many people who in the 21st century or in the information age are completely lost, not because of an inability, but there's nothing to encourage them or to propel them to actually keep up with those times.
Actually, yes. I think that is the demographic I was talking about.
Yes.
That's a demographic I'm talking about, and I'm sorry to say farmers, because we have this thing that farmers are old people and stuff like that.
So basically you're talking about rural population.
Rural population.
Okay.
And actually even urban, there's some section of urban population also.
That doesn't have access.
That does not have access, or probably they find it a bit costly and stuff. So there's that demographic, and it's not about age. It's about it's across the age. The age groups. They're the old ones, then they're the young ones actually who don't have access. So I think what we need to do is to find a way of either tapping into all this. If you're to sell news, if we are to say like we're only going digital, then we have to find a way of actually tapping into all this and bringing everybody into this digital space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me
and then we have
Peter.
to find a way of how to monetize it.
Yeah. Peter, good morning. And we also have Vera Okeo, who's a global health reporter and media researcher. Vera, good morning as well.
Hi.
Hi, Vera. So, Vera, you've had the conversation that we are having. We're talking about, the place and space of print media in the country, and in this new era of technology, where do you see print?
These days I tend to not define print because of the product, like the newspaper. I would like to see the print journalism or the print as the process of how we produce the journalism itself, because the definition of what print and broadcast and digital keeps changing every now and then because of our world, as it is. So if we are looking at print as a newspaper, I don't think that's going to be here for a while. And even if it's going to be here, it's not going to be financially sustainable, because, print has always relied on advertising a lot. And that's not happening at the moment as it should be. Remember, producing a good quality paper also has its cost as well, apart from paying the reporters and the people who work in the production, the whole chain of production.
Yeah.
What I think print can do to survive is kind of like have a hybrid situation. Like I'll give legacy media like The Guardian. They're still very big online, but they're still not neglected producing their quarterly or whatever magazines that they do and their newspaper. But a lot of effort and money goes into developing the digital as it is developing the print side.
Vera, just stay on the line. We need to get you on a clearer line, because I think there are issues with this one. Just stay on the line, and John will try and sort this out as we continue the conversation. How do we define print then? Is it print, the hard copy, or is it print journalism?
Eric, may I just say something here?
Yeah.
You see, if you divorce print journalism from just the effects of the digital age and print, then perhaps we may not fully understand this, because one cannot be divorced from the other. I'm thinking of
what can be divorced from what?
Print media cannot be divorced from the reality of the digital age and everything else around it, because it all involves what you call consumption by people who have an interest in that particular industry. There are people whose learning for the longest time was purely on print, meaning books. Now, that has changed dramatically, but it's only those who have this availed to them, as Clay was saying, who would consider it as something that is important. But those who don't have, they may hear of it, they may even understand its importance, but again, it isn't available. So again, there are people who may even understand technology, but because of culture and habit, they will never read the news on their phones. They want to see a hard copy. They want to see print.
Turn a page.
Otherwise, they don't actually feel the reading.
Because I don't think the book industry, as it were physical, is dying. I mean, the people who actually can they can buy Kindle and buy all these things, but they still buy books.
Right.
Yes, so I think there'll always be maybe 10, 20, 30 people who will still buy the physical paper,
So will that make that business commercially viable? If you get the circulation numbers really dropping to that level, and you need to print on a daily basis, is it going to change the business model? Maybe say newspapers are going to be weekly.
Do you remember I'm trying to remember who it is who said this. Was it the chairman of Radio Africa, or was it our CEO? I'm trying to remember who said this. But they said, you see, we are so competitive, we do not think of the reality of our industry.
Toski Prono, yes.
Yes, he said, if, for instance, we decided that one of the many top media houses would be in charge of printing for all the papers, said we would reduce our cost tremendously.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the issue of cost now already automatically makes you competitive. If we then again pooled our transport in terms of distribution in the same way, again, we'd reduce. Even as he said it, it became obvious that it is because of the rigidity of thought, because people hang on to something that worked in the past and may not necessarily work now, that this discussion is taking place, and the quagmire that we speak of actually exists.
I'm also thinking that, I think a narrative has been fed that because the newspaper is dying in certain parts of the world, that must be the trend that would happen here. And who's to say that different forms of traditional media then cannot still be consumed in this neck of the woods? Would you say that it's possible for us to do both? Just like you've talked about, Clay, just now, that people are buying books, but then the book industry is still making these same publications available on digital media. It doesn't mean that one side of it has disappeared. It just means that it is accommodating new media. Is it not possible that the newspaper could still thrive
That's
here?
why I said, because
Is it thriving?
Yeah,
Is it not possible that it could?
No, is it?
That's why I was actually saying that in our environment, the problem is actually an antipathy towards mainstream media. So even if you go digital, because I don't think that actually right now when we go on digital platforms, our publications, when we go on digital platforms, that actually we get so many ads, we still attract more ads, or we get more revenue than hard copy. I don't think so. I don't have the figures.
It is the business models, it's the approaches. It's not necessarily that because there's antipathy. And I'll come and tell you, let's take a quick break, and I'll tell you, these people who are spending their 10 hours a day on a mobile phone, what are they consuming? They're consuming information. What is it that newspapers sell? Information.
Then probably what you're trying to say is that it's our content. It's the content that
the
actually
approach of the content.
Because how that content is presented.
Yes.
Yeah, but
because people are still consuming the same content. Today, if you ask people whether Aden Duale is still the leader of the majority, many people will tell you Aden Duale, something has happened to him. They know. And it's the same information that we sell on
But they
newspapers
may
on a
not
daily
necessarily
basis.
have the details that you would have
Yes.
if you read the newspaper.
If you read the whole story.
Yes.
Because
If you took
I
interest.
I tend to see sometimes like even local stories, people read the headline
And the first paragraph.
Read the rest.
and then they react.
Yep.
They react. And also don't seem to understand like when a story is posted online, it's always the same story it's posted online. It always has two headlines. Because you're not this one, you're talking to you see? But there probably you're talking to a bigger audience. So if you tell them Duale as the headline, they would not know. So probably you add Kenyan majority leader here, Kenyan parliament majority leader, and they read that, they will start reacting. Oh, he has a name, Kenyan media, you can't even name him. So you see, that's what I mean by anti-patriotism.
Let's take a brief break. 28 minutes to 9. Let's look at traffic.
All right, coming off of Thika Road right around Ngara and getting into the CBD, there seems to be a bit of a hold up there as you then approach the Globe Cinema roundabout. It shouldn't be too painful. It should be opened up in just a short while. Langata Road then coming down past KWS as you then go down towards Wilson Airport and approach the T-Mall roundabout. Also, some bumper-to-bumper traffic there, but it shouldn't be too bad. Should open up in a while. We're right in the middle of traffic hour on Mombasa Road as well, right around Cabanas, coming down from the SGR and then moving towards General Motors where we have the usual hold up. And then again, right around Bellevue, heading towards the turn off to South C or the turn off to South B. A little bit of traffic, but you'll get to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout without too much of a headache. Uhuru Highway has quite a lot of traffic this morning. It's moving very slowly, but it'll move you through to the CBD and out towards Westlands in good time. Spice FM KE on Twitter. That's how you can reach us.
Spice FM. Nyeri. Traffic.
Situation Room is Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM and also live streaming on our digital platforms www.spicefm.co.ke as well as Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Vera Okeo, global health reporter and media researcher, is back on the line. And Vera, before we took a break from you, you were saying you don't see print media being around for long.
Yeah, but I would like to have that's not a death sentence. Like print media, I tend to look at it as a product and the process of producing that news. Mm-hmm. But as we were talking, I would like to just respond to what my colleague there was saying. I like to work with data, and the reason Reuters Institute Journalism Digital Report did say that it's true. Like the print is dying. It's not an illusion. It's not like it's not there. But what we cannot do, we cannot compare journalism to the publishing industry, because the purpose of what journalism does to the society is different from, you never see people congregate together on Twitter having an uproar about a book the same way we would congregate on Twitter for a news that was broadcast, because journalism plays a democratic role. When we come in, it's actually a public sphere, which the book and the publishing industry isn't. Mm. So we cannot compare what's happening in the publishing industry
to what's happening in the
cause and effect. No, you cannot. It's like comparing not even apples and oranges. It's comparing proteins and carbohydrates, because they serve very different purposes to our body. Yeah. So that the fact that the publishing industry is still thriving, I'm not sure, I've not checked the data, does not mean that that's the same thing that's happening to the print.
What data do you have about the print industry, the newspaper publications?
Reuters is not actually the print, it's the consumption of how we the way we consume news. The digital report. That institute produces it annually. And it's actually the growth of WhatsApp and social media, and even Instagram as a source of consuming news has grown exponentially, and not in just the ages between 18 and 30 as people would think. It's even people who are age 58, thereabout. Because the issue about the printing is like, I need to have time to sit down and read the newspaper, and that's something that most people do not have now because you have this alternative use. I will take notice of the growth of the podcast, particularly, where you write a story, and newspapers like The Atlantic voices that story for you to listen to it. Like, it was written in the paper, that's fine, but you can listen to it as you're driving. So there's also those things, the Internet of Things, as our life is being changed by the Internet. And it also taking a toll on how we consume information. Not that we do not like the digital, we have a culture for not liking the digital. It's just the convenience in it.
It's a consumption trend. And I tend to agree with what you're saying, Vera. And I think that's what I was saying even before we went to the break. The consumption trends of people are changing. When you talk about how people would buy the newspaper, you buy the newspaper in the morning and you're either reading it as you're having your tea, you're reading it in the car, you're reading it in the office the first thing before you start your day, or on Sundays you're reading it as you chill, as you're basking in the morning sun. Nowadays, you're consuming information, on a regular basis throughout your day, not regimented like it used to be when newspapers were right. I have to buy the paper and then I have to find time to read the paper. So you're consuming the information a lot more throughout the day.
Yeah.
But do they have to be competitive, really?
No, they don't have to be competitive.
Could they not be complementary?
You see, complementarity comes in the business, I think.
Not necessarily. It's in the consumption
It's in the business model.
It's in the consumption even because digital is faster. There's no question about it. It can reach a much larger people within a much faster time. But the interaction with the paper, this is print. Just the interaction, the social aspect of it cannot be discounted. Because there are people, even in the digital age, who like and enjoy something they can see, read, touch. And what we're dealing with, or what we're discussing, is something new that has caught the world by storm. But whether it is something that will last indefinitely and that will completely overtake what we already have is now the discussion we're trying to figure out, and I'm saying it won't. It'll just have its space because once the fad element of digitalization is over, it'll settle. And when it settles, then people will have what I've called, another choice as to how it is.
Digital becomes the new normal.
Yes, it becomes the new normal. People will just have now an additional choice of how to consume whatever you are. And Vera's put it well when she talks about listening. Yes, you're talking about pocket. You're talking about podcasts. It is just a different way of consuming.
It's another form of consuming information.
Yes, so all we've done is widened our choices.
Yeah, I think that one of widened choices of how you consume news. You can get it online. I mean, you can get it on the paper, or you can listen to it.
Yes.
But you see also, I mean, that's why, again, this listening to news, I mean, like what has been published in print, and then you listen to it. And this is where I was talking about, like, we tend to take long to adopt. Because around 10, 15 years ago, I remember there were audiobooks, like the BAM book. I'd never read it. Actually, I used to listen to it when I was going to work almost every day. But do we have any local books actually that have been made into audiobooks? You see, so that's why I was talking about adoption. Maybe it will happen in 5-6 years' time. That's why we are a bit slow. I mean, I'm talking about our environment. We are a bit slow in adopting this. And that is actually what we can say has also affected our growth in the digital space.
Vera, you disagree?
No, let me tell you something. In my opinion, I don't know whether this would get fired. Like, Kenyans are very quick in adopting technology.
Quick.
And very quick. Remember,
the consumer is ahead.
Which Kenyans are you referring to, Vera?
Clay. I do not go with a few
No.
group
This is not Clay.
people
This
that
is
I'm
C.T.
talking
Muga.
about. Oh, C.T. Muga. I'm talking about.
But we
the
seem to be the
digital-
same age bracket, so the mistake is easily understood. Yes.
Okay. So looking at the way we have been selling the paper, even the smartphones, Pew Research produces that every time. Kenya was amongst the people to adopt the use of smartphones way faster than the others. The problem with the media, our reluctance of moving to this digital space, is actually the management.
Yep.
It has got nothing to do with the consumer
So
because
it's not a
I cannot
consumer who is slow.
consume.
And actually,
Yeah,
that's why I've been saying
consumer.
adoption here means like
The
even
industry.
the producers themselves. Yeah, because if you take long to give it to those people, then how will they adopt it? That's what I've been talking about. That actually been slow as the producers themselves.
Vera, why do you
That's
think,
what I've been saying.
Vera, why is there a reluctance to adapt to all of this? Why is there a reluctance if it is from management point of view? And what do you think needs to be embraced?
For instance, taking media managers have that thing like I have to produce a content and I have to make money. So you have to understand sometimes they're afraid if I take this leap, am I going to affect what I know works, and it's going to make me have losses,
Or will I get an ROI? Yeah.
Yeah, if you read the blogs by the New York Times editor-in-chief, he always expresses some of the anxiety he was going through when he was trying to put money into reporting in stuff like, the culinary industry, cooking and all that. So there's always that problem, the reluctance of traditional media to embrace the digital age because of the money factor. And also, I don't think our newsroom values the research bit of journalism. If you look at smaller newsrooms that have come up and really taken up the digital space, like The Correspondent in the Netherlands, unfortunately, I do not have African examples. There are roles like audience engagement, conversation editors. These are people to help you how people are interacting with you.
With their content.
So they tell you, they like this comment is being given that, and it's actually guided by, these people may not actually be journalists, they could be people in algorithms, people from an IT background.
Analytics,
then they inform the manager that this is what's going on. And any media house that has succeeded in blending the print and the digital and successfully done it, moved from the golden broadcasting era, which was between the late 90s up to early 2000s in Africa and way much later in other parts of the world. They've had those roles. I don't think I've seen in Kenya, the digital editor, the managing editor for digital is also the person doing the algorithm, is also the person doing the audience engagement. And sometimes they actually do not even know free tools on the internet.
Yeah, you don't have the
to
techies,
help
basically.
them do that job.
Organizations
Yeah,
like
actually,
BBC and Al Jazeera actually have media labs. Like the BBC has a
But you
media
see now,
lab that
like,
looked at what are people
whatever
consuming.
Vera has said, all that is what leads to this. We are poor in adapting or in changing.
But Claire, I'm asking, are we really poor?
I mean, that's
We are
that's
not
that's
poor.
what that's
digital
why,
printing and what we're
because
calling
I mean,
the
like
digital.
what she's saying, like we don't have researchers,
industry
we
is
don't,
not-
yeah,
is
the
not
industry
quick to move.
Is not
No.
quick to move.
And I'm
like,
trying to ask, why is
bring
it
in all
quick to
these
move?
people.
If digital printing as we know it, when did it really come to the fore? Late 1950s, 1970s. We started hearing about its proliferation in the 1990s. Okay? How many decades are those? And I'm not talking about Kenya. I'm not talking about the third world. I'm talking about the West, where these things emanated from.
What are you talking about? Digital printing.
The digital world as we know it. You see,
Actually, when you're in high
digitalization
school,
Okay.
was called the third revolution. It was called the third industrial revolution.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm saying it began a long time ago.
Uh-huh.
All I'm saying is that it always takes time everywhere.
Yeah, it's
For
not
industry to move.
to
Yes, it
Yeah.
takes time everywhere.
Unfortunately, in some cases, like now, in terms of consumption, when you're dealing with an audience, if an audience moves, then you're playing catch up. You keep giving us the example of Kodak, right? Kodak was among the first ones to actually move into digital photography.
They didn't simply ensure.
But then they
They
didn't.
didn't keep up with
Yes.
what made them the leaders. But industry
They were
does
sitting
that
there
all the time.
They were sitting there and they were still saying, you know what?
They're okay.
Touching a photo, you know, when you have a printed photograph, it has value. You frame it on your wall, and you know everybody
But
comes
that's-
and
but
they see that.
it still does. Even
But
that
it still
building-
does. Actually,
today,
the framed ones are actually even now is more expensive.
Exactly. It still does.
And
But-
99%
but
of the things you have on
Kodak management.
Your phone can
Kodak.
disappear.
Kodak management
Yeah, but
stuck to
actually-
that and stopped moving into what else can we do? How can we play into the digital era? And I think this is the same thing that you're
Eric,
saying.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
Clay.
think okay, like Kodak. I think I read somewhere like, okay, fine, they don't make those other things anymore. But
Fuji and so forth
most
overtook
of
them in certain things.
most
Yes,
of the
but
things actually in all these cameras that we have today
Kodak.
actually
Kodak.
they're owned by Kodak.
Yep.
So we might not see them physically.
But
But
their presence is there.
The presence is there.
I
Anyway,
want to ask Vera a question, and looking at the commercial aspect, Vera, the commercial aspect is something that quite a lot of media managers lean on when there's this reluctance to go, towards digital. Now, when we say digital, it's in the content like you've spoken about. Is that not a justifiable concern for them?
As I mentioned, that the reason why they're reluctant is they don't want to mess up with the money, because
Right.
you'll not be able to produce content if you don't have the money. Like sometimes I think we are always too hard on media managers. Oh, you don't do this, you don't do that. The conversation is like we should be asking, why are you afraid of making the leap? And then also I feel like people always see the product of the digital migration at the Z point, and they're at A, but between B and Y, there's small things that you need to do
Yep.
that does not look so much. Every time I try to tell them, why don't you try this? They're like, that will need a lot of money. I don't have a lot more money on my budget right now, so don't ask me for money.
Vera,
Some of these things are not for money.
Vera, the media in this country, they're a business.
everywhere the media is a business.
Yes, I'm narrowing it down to our country. It's a business, all right? Just throw your mind to the variety that exists. We're talking about papers. What about magazines? It's a whole array.
Yep.
The digital world has entered into this space. But why would a business person change when it doesn't interfere with their profit margins? Right now, the media in Kenya, I'm talking about Kenya specifically, is likely to embrace change a little quicker, because they're not making money the same way they did. So they look for
But
cheaper
they have
options.
not been making money for a very long time.
No, I wouldn't call it a very long time.
It is for a long
No,
time,
no,
City.
no. I
No,
am in
some
the
time, not long.
industry.
How long is long?
I am in it. I am
Okay,
in it. We
how long
began the
is long?
financial recession in 2008. I'll tell you for a fact. From 2008 to this present, no media house has made profit.
That's 12 years.
Yes.
And you have
2008
evidence to support this.
Absolutely. Go to Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. Just
No,
look
I'm not
18
going to
years
go there. I
ago.
want you to tell me.
I'm telling you, we are no longer in the golden age of broadcast or print.
I would not vouch for about the revenues and all that, but I do know that in 2010, actually, I was retrenched from a magazine. Actually, these were lifestyle magazines and glamour magazines by a South African company, which actually had invested here.
Yes.
So just the other day, they closed down the Kenyan operations or the East African operations, and 10 years now, they're actually closing down their South African operations. You see, so it could be true that the revenues of the print industry has been dwindling, but I would not say probably that it's not been making money per se, because there've been advertisements here, there. Maybe
Profits have been dropping. I mean, we're
profits
talking
have
about
been
the largest media houses, the Standard and Nation, are listed. And they announce their profits
So we
publicly.
cannot probably
So
say
they
that
always
they've
come
been-
and say the profit from this year to the next year, it always has been on a downward
Yeah, so
trajectory.
the media landscape, yes, has been doing poorly. But you see also, like...
And the biggest cash cow in these two media houses is the print.
Yeah. But actually, as Vera mentions, that sometimes you need something and your media manager tells you, no, I don't have money for that. I don't have money for that. It's like that example I was giving you about content creators, where they probably, you hear them complain like, oh, Kenyan media, they're only interested in what gives them money. They cannot. But this is a content creator. He or she does not actually create content for free. One thing they tend to forget is that actually media houses is full of content creators.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
Yes, you call them journalists. The other ones you call them content creators, but actually they
Everybody is, yeah.
and all this content needs to be monetized one way or the other.
Yeah.
So one thing why actually you find that you need to do something, and the media manager says like there is no money, there is no money, there is no money. That's where I always come back to, you're not operating in a vacuum. The overall economy of the country also affects actually how much the media can spend, or how much, because it affects the advertisers. It affects like the cost of newsprint. That is one thing we never think about actually in this country, because most of the newsprint in Kenya is actually imported. You see, so we don't have local newsprint where probably I grew up in this country where the local newsprint industry, the local media industry were only allowed to import newsprint after they meet a certain quota of local newsprint. First, you buy newsprint from the local companies. Whether you ban it or whatever you do with it, the government does not care. You buy, you meet your quota, then you get a license to import. So the media works hand in glove with actually the development of the country, because when you buy, you also grow the economy, the local economy. But here what happens is that most of the money for the print, the newsprint, actually goes to other countries because we have to import it. So we don't actually support the local industry. And the local industry also, it has not, there's nothing much it produces. So it affects the overall growth of the economy, and it affects the media more, you see. So if the economy is tanking, there is no way we're actually going to thrive. It's not going to work. And I think that's one thing also we need to factor in every time we call the media names, or we say print media is not working. And then, okay, fine, 60 bob for the paper. That's a cover price. Actually, it is probably the same as giving the paper out for free.
For free. It's a free paper.
Because
really.
if you consider the cost of producing a paper, just look at the page, how much it costs to produce a page. Look at the time. Look at probably the photos there, how much you're going to pay for it. Look at the plate if you go through the whole thing from computer to plate to the transport and all that, the 60 bob actually cannot even produce one page. Yeah. So I think these are some of the things that people tend to think like, okay, fine, wanauza gazeti pesa mingi 60 bob yote. But actually, they don't know that actually that 60 bob does not even cover the cost of producing half the page. You see, so we need to consider very many factors. Yes, newspaper is doing badly; it is tanking. But I think maybe for it to pick up, or for just the mainstream media to pick up in the digital space, they need to produce that content. They need to stop playing catch up with the consumer.
These two, and I want to understand why. For you, Clay Muganda, it sounds like print media is mainstream media.
No. What I mean to say is this, because I keep on saying because print media is basically being done mostly by the mainstream media. Yeah, the mainstream media. We have the TV, whatever, and all that, because we are the mainstream media industry. That's how it's called. That's why they call us the legacy media, because we still stick to these things. Yep. And that's why they call it the mainstream media. We are the lamestream media, the opposite of that, social media. You see, yeah. So because we are the ones who actually, we are the opposite of social media.
And yet you don't have to be the opposite of social media.
Because that is how it's actually being looked at. Like, okay, fine. Oh, the mainstream media and the social media. Yeah. Okay, fine.
And I'm saying the mindset also in the mainstream media is that you're separate. Mainstream media is different from social media. And I'm saying we don't have to be. If you look at the same way you said, if you looked at ourselves as content producers, this is our job. Our job is to produce content. How it's distributed,
and to monetize it,
how it's disseminated, whether it's on print, on digital platforms, that is not the issue. So we start then discussing how best do we disseminate this at a cost-effective and a way that reaches a wider audience and monetizes better.
I think the dissemination is probably, that's where I'm getting my lines mixed up and stuff like that. how to send it out there and how to make it
How
worth
to make money.
out of what we send out there.
Yeah.
I think that is the problem.
I know we're coming to the end of this, but I want to just give it this perspective. We are witnessing the development of the media industry as we know it, and we're also witnessing the development of competitive media sources to what we have been accustomed to, what we keep referring to as print media. Now, this is, in any industry, this is something that always happens. And it'll have its highs and its lows. Something else is going to come up somewhere along the line. But a lot of these things are not just technological changes, but they're also a reflection of the change in society.
Vera, what would your closing remarks be?
Closing remark. I do not like giving statement like this is going to happen, that's not going to happen. I'll just tell media houses to. I'll tell media houses to be really open.
Going to die, Vera.
But that's the statistics. That's the statistics. I'm not saying that I did not come up with that. That is what the trend is showing.
Okay.
What I would like to tell media, the media journalism and stuff like that, they have to be open to the issue, to research. And by research, I don't mean publishing papers. I mean looking at how the market is going, and particularly for you, I don't think at this moment, regardless of the size, standard or nation, they don't need to appeal to everyone. Like, they need to know these are the kind of people that roll with us. I was about to say some bad word there. These are the people that are in our corner, and let's work with that.
But I
let's
think,
not just
I think
be
that
in the
goes
business
against
of just
probably the need of journalism as a public service.
In your closing remarks now. Okay.
Okay, fine.
Yours.
Vera, I'm sorry.
Yours, Clay?
Vera is done?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think the way forward is probably we just need to move with the times, and we should stop playing catch up with the consumer, as he said. So yes, we keep on complaining all the time when they say like, oh, the media is supposed to set the agenda and stuff like that. But I think also the audience that you're setting the agenda to should be receptive or should actually have the mental capacity to understand what you're feeding them. Yes, I'm sorry to say this, but
mental
I think
capacity.
Whoa.
Yes.
He has actually inadvertently referred to incapacity, but carry on.
Yeah, because there are very many factors actually. I mean, which yes is killing print media and basically journalism. I mean, mainstream media. One of them also is what's our level of literacy?
Okay. Thank you very much, Clay Muganda, writer and editor with the Standard Group, and Vera Okeo, global health reporter and media researcher. As we conclude and come to the top of the hour, just listen to today's proverb from C.T. Muga.
It is the heart that is afraid of breaking that never learns to dance.
Umesikia hiyo, Vera? Thank you very much, guys. Have a good one. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
It's opening up in most parts of the city this morning. It's looking much better than it was about an hour or half an hour ago. And we'll see that traffic levels then will drop over time. And from Mombasa Road to Thika Road, coming into and out of the CBD this morning, and also on the eastern and southern bypasses, not much of an issue. Still dregs of traffic on Langata Road and a little bit in Westlands, but it should be fine as we move on out of here. And that's what it looks like on the roads right now.
Spice up your life. Traffic. This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging,
Okay,
deep,
2 minutes up to 9.
controversial.
It's a Situation
In the
Room.
room,
The
we
conversation
have
continues. So you heard from the practitioners and what they were saying, from what's happening to the media industry and what's happening especially to the print industry. City, you don't sound like you think print is going anywhere.
No, I think we are witnessing the seesawing nature of industry. It's just that we are focusing on the media because that's where we work. And the thing is, digitalization caught the entire world by storm. The speed with which things move, the ease with which certain things were done. But one of the things that is perhaps not talked about adequately, I'm not saying it hasn't been considered, is how it is that it is very difficult to actually change norms. If people are accustomed to doing things in a certain way, often to their detriment, of course, hence the example of Kodak that I like giving. But it's a reality. And sometimes, in fact, Claire was reminding me, at a point in time when we were in secondary school, and even today, you keep hearing of paperless. It has never arrived.
Hasn't really happened, has it?
That's why I was saying that you need to consider the complementary nature of some of these things. See, when you talk media, you cannot leave out social media. They have a huge segment that they play in the terms of relaying content. Okay? Print media, voice media, like what we're in right now. It's a question of each trying to find its space and balancing it. What has happened in the 21st century is that we have more choices. That's what I'm saying. And what seems to be suffering and declining, print, it was bound to. And why it was bound to decline, not die, was because these alternatives are appealing to a different demographic. And that's what happens with every age. So that's why, let me repeat, we are simply witnessing some of the throes that the industry goes through when you have changes. That's all.
You see, the downside of whatever we're witnessing is that it has an impact on going concerns, all right? So you have a business that is actually working and printing a newspaper, and this is how they hope to make money. Because you print, you sell your advertising space based on your claim of the kind of audience that you have. So if your circulation drops, see, it's not the 60 bob that brings money to Standard Group.
No, it's the numbers.
It's the number, it's the advertising. And then the number of people who have spent that 60 bob to buy the paper, and then the number of people, then we say that every one person who buys. You can use
and say that it's...
Every one person who buys, then there are 2 other people who see that paper. So we look at that number. If those numbers are dropping, then the advertiser sees what's the value of coming to this particular platform when I can go to another platform.
True. But you see, there is also the underlying issue of businesses and the way in which they operate and being in tune with not only the changing times, but the environment in which they function. For the longest time, when people talk of private schools in this country, they talk about high-end schools. Private schools have been in existence for the longest time. And even longer, they were what we call Harambee schools. They are schools that were built by the local communities. And what would happen in these Harambee schools, the government would then take them over. But many private schools, the vast majority for a long time, were schools that were owned by individuals that actually offered education at a lower cost sometimes than even the government. But more significantly, they offered education to people who could not make it into government schools. Okay, business. Then came the 844 system, and people realized that there are more children than the government can handle. Then opened this tertiary level of private schools and the high-end ones, because they realized that there were parents who could afford this. And part of the reason was because of the population. You then had very large numbers in class, and it was a challenge to learning. And a challenge to just the resources in the education sector.
Yeah.
That's the progression of that line of business. And you can see how that growth came about. Now, with the media, the discussion around it sometimes can even get emotive because the media is something we interact with on a daily basis. Some may not even realize it's the media they're interacting with, but they're interacting with it. Now, something that you interact with, something personal then gets involved in it. You see, when you hear me talk about print, I like books and I like reading. You see? But when I try to get my children into this, it is a different dynamic from when I was introduced because I didn't have alternatives.
Yep.
So it was something I could immerse myself into.
Yep.
But they have alternatives.
They can consume the same information in different ways.
They have alternatives.
Yep.
Now, that is what our industry has not been quick to understand or to relate to or change to. And that's why these stories keep coming. If they were quick to change to it, then some of these things would not be where they are. And I think even the owners of these industries have come to that understanding. There are many things they could do differently simply so that they can stay relevant.
It's not easy.
No, it isn't easy. But that's why some business keep thriving when others in the same industry collapse.
Well, that's, I mean, yeah, in terms of being quick to make in terms of being quick to adapt, and in terms of saying, okay, you can be quick to make a change quickly, but then also getting the feel of what it is that people want to consume and the manner in which they want to consume it. So if you ask me, the majority of the work is not done in the rolling out. The majority of the work is being done really having a look at the market and what it's asking and what at that point what it is consuming, and then going ahead and making a decision on the above. But I do agree, and I do say that in terms of adapting, okay, well, it would take time, but it doesn't mean that there's certain things we throw out of the window just because there's a new form that has come on board. What do we have now? For example, if you look at the music industry, people went from vinyl and to cassettes and videotapes and then compact discs. But what are people doing now? People are looking for vinyl records to keep and to still play on those records. What does that mean? That
become collector's items.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that it got completely thrown out the window. It meant that something else came that grabbed people's
Very good
attention
example.
for some time, but somebody wants to go back to that and use it for something that they could have for even a longer period of time.
There was a
It's
value
just keeping
to it.
history.
Yes, absolutely.
That's it. It's sentimental value. Today, if any of the artists Beyonce released her album on vinyl, you think she'll sell as much as she's selling now?
No, I don't
No,
think...
but it remains an option. That's
Yeah.
the thing. It remains an
That's
option.
it. But then the number of companies that now deal in vinyl reduce. So you find that there's one that still does that, but because it's catering to a niche audience, and this niche audience is people who still have a sentimental connection to vinyl. So the business of vinyl, basically, let's just call it as it is, died. Nowadays, it's the business of
Eric,
streaming.
the mass business of vinyl.
Yeah, the mass business of vinyl died.
I would say changed.
Died.
Changed. There's a market, but it isn't big.
There is a market for it. There is a market for
Call
it,
it
but
even
it's not. You
minuscule,
can't
but it's
compare.
there.
You can't
It's not
compare
big.
it. You can't compare it to what it was at that time, because look at when they thrived. It was the only form available.
Yep.
Right. The reason why it changed is because other forms then became readily available that you could actually carry with you wherever you went.
Yep.
Now, it didn't mean that those who grew up with it, for example, now, or those who wanted to know what this older form was, didn't exist anymore. But if you look at today's times, there are those who still have an appetite for it and would look for it, comb tooth and nail.
I call
to
it a
find
niche market. That's I call it a niche market.
Yes.
It's a niche market for it, and it's a very small segmented market. The bigger mass market has moved into streaming.
They have.
You
they have.
release, now you're looking at a streaming platform, and how do those streaming platforms become more effective? How do they monetize better?
You know what often happens, as you say, correctly put it, Eric, is that with the time, when you have that sort of like alternative, then someone finds what suits them. And you'll find there's a niche market for this, there's a niche market for this. Some will be greater than others.
Yeah.
But whenever you have something new, people rush towards it because we are that way inclined as human beings. It's attractive, it's new, it's lovely. Then it settles. And then some go back to what they had before, some go back to other forms of it. But that's what happens. You see, for the longest time, it has been assumed that a computer had to be Microsoft. Not understanding how Microsoft actually functions and how it is that they've been able to maintain that market. One of the things that Microsoft has done very well over the years, they have had their ears to the ground when it comes to innovations that people have made in that field. And they absorb you. So they're always on top of their game. Something else comes along, they are quick to bring it into their fold. And
in fact, their R&D is huge.
Yes.
So they're always the first to be in the new space.
Actually, what I was told, which was even surprising by someone who actually worked there some times back, that one of the departments that's really huge is the social science department. And I had to ask, what do you mean? He said, they have anthropologists, sociologists, psychologists. I said, why? He said, do you really think they managed to sell these things without having people who actually understand how human beings behave?
Yeah.
They didn't need to say more.
Right.
But they decided to explain to me. When you find a product is red, it is not red for the sake of being red. Believe me, the market research that has been done on
It's
it,
the science
and
behind
which
it.
segment, I said, why do you think you have yellow phones? Why do you think? And I said, okay, I really did get it when you first mentioned it. But they wanted to make sure I got it. Now, Coca-Cola. Just when you think you have understood the flavors they have, they bring a flavor you've never even heard of.
Yeah.
Why? Because they are alert and alive to this. So you never stop hearing of them. Meaning it's a product that has become generational. In fact, it reminds me of a certain establishment in this town along Langata Road that when you have children who've reached teenage and have grown up, when you hear them talking about it, it's called Carnival.
Oh, right. Okay. I was wondering what.
Which one? Where are you going?
You'd think they invented it. And yet, that it existed even when I was in school.
Yeah, indeed.
Even before then.
Indeed. Let's take a quick break, take a look at the weather, and then come back into conversation. And let's go back into this issue that we discussed earlier in the newspapers, shall we? How people are basically now, the hotel industry is looking at what's on the menu. Hotels serving up deals to woo visitors, the local tourism industry. The tourism CS Najib Balala saying the problem that he has with the tourism industry is that we have overpriced ourselves. Even the people who come to Kenya come once in a lifetime because it's very expensive. We need to make it affordable, even to Kenyans.
What on earth is he talking about? How many times has this man been minister for tourism?
Okay.
He's not the one costing it.
Oh no.
So we shall come into it.
It's not him who has to cost it,
We shall
but he
come
is the
to it.
minister.
We shall come to it, and that's why he's speaking. 14 minutes after 9. It's a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning.
24/7.
All right, it's warming up just a smidgen in Nairobi, 16 degrees and mostly cloudy conditions. We'll have some rain later on with highs of 19, just a sprinkle, however, and lows of 12. In Nyeri, 15 degrees and the rain is coming down. It's going to get heavier throughout the day with highs of 19 and lows of 13. Taking a look then into Nakuru, where it's cloudy at 16 degrees. Rain coming in later, highs of 21 and lows of 12. In Eldoret, it's 15 degrees and mostly cloudy. Thunderstorms are forecasted for the afternoon, with highs of 19 and lows of 12. Taking a look then into Kisumu, 21 degrees and mostly cloudy. We'll see highs of 24 and lows of 19 with rain through most parts of the afternoon. Cloudy conditions in Kakamega at 18 degrees. Thunderstorms are also forecasted for here. 22 degrees the high and lows of 15. Let's take a look at Malindi, where the rain was coming down a little bit earlier. It's partly cloudy now and the rains will come back. Highs of 27 and lows of 24. Mostly cloudy conditions in Mombasa, 25 degrees. Highs of 27 and lows of 23 with rain and wet conditions in the afternoon. In Kampala, it's 20 degrees and cloudy conditions, giving way to the rain early on. Highs of 22 and lows of 18. In Dar es Salaam, it's mostly cloudy at 25 degrees. We'll see highs of 30 and lows of 21. Let's take a look in Johannesburg now, where it's warmed up just a little bit to 3 degrees. Mostly sunny conditions today and highs of 17 and lows of 1. And in Lagos, it's clear skies at 24 degrees. We'll see highs of 27 and lows of 23 with cloudy conditions. We'll take a last look into Europe now, where in London, it's cloudy conditions at 17 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 16. In Paris, it's cloudy conditions at 17 degrees, highs of 23 and lows of 16. And finally, for New York, when they wake up, it'll be highs of 25, lows of 21 with partly cloudy conditions.
Minutes after 9, it's a situation room. Kenya's biggest conversation in the room is Eric Latif, City Muga Nduoko. Now, this morning, the CS for Tourism and Wildlife, Najib Balala, was speaking to Citizen TV, and he talked about local tourism and why it is that Kenyans are not really able to access local tourism, tourism facilities, just like we were talking about this early in the morning. He says, the problem I have with our tourism industry is that we have overpriced ourselves. Even the people who come to Kenya come once in a lifetime because it's very expensive. We need to make it more affordable, even for Kenyans. This is what he was saying, and we'll get the clip. John is trying to see if we can give us that audio clip so we can listen to what exactly he was saying. Basically, his argument is, look at all the players in the tourism value chain. You start from the government, the parks, and then now you go into the hotels, the tour operators, the airlines, and all. It's all quite steep in price.
He's discovering this now.
It's quite steep in price. He says this is a problem that he has had now. He has had conversations with the industry, and he's basically, it sounds like he's expressing frustration. I've been trying to tell our guys, look guys, we need to come together and look and sort of for a long time, just like we said earlier, for a long time, why is it that locals believed that tourism is for the foreigners?
Well,
there was a perception that it was expensive.
The perception was actually not misplaced, neither was it false. Let me give you a case of Mombasa. There were hotels that were owned by individuals that you couldn't walk into.
They were members only.
Couldn't walk into. They are clubs, essentially. You couldn't walk into.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And couldn't walk in means an African couldn't walk in. And I'm not talking about 1920. No. I'm talking about this century.
Yep.
Long 10, 20 years after independence. I'm talking about that. And even when you went to hotels, everything you bought in a hotel was expensive. Now, Mr. Balala himself, before he even became mayor of Mombasa, was involved with the Hotel Keepers Association. He's been in the hotel industry for a long time.
So he knows what he's saying.
He does know what he's saying. What I have an issue with is him saying he has a problem. What does he mean he has a problem? He is Is he not minister?
He is the minister.
He's been minister before even.
Yep.
Yes. So, against this background of he has a problem, I would have wanted to hear, you know what we have done over the years has been this, but this has persisted despite this. What am I getting at? Question. What percentage of our GDP or how much money does Kenya spend to attract tourists on a yearly basis?
Its own. I'm going to go back to that, its own. And I'm saying that there's a gold mine here that is being ignored completely. Well, okay, in the past, it was ignored completely in terms of what you can get, because it's a double-edged tool that you have here, that you're able to sell the scenery of your country. You're able to sell
the
that,
uniqueness
of your country to your citizens, not even anybody else. And then you're able to make money. So you've killed two birds with one stone. And I'm saying that the dregs of that mentality are still very much existent in the minds of Kenyans. As somebody who's coming from outside, and some of the things, there's so many places I've been to in Kenya that Kenyans don't even know exist.
Why?
That don't even know exist.
Why?
Because it is marketed outside and not
So
marketed
are you saying
within.
that people are not consuming local tourism because they do not know?
Yes.
I'm telling you.
Because that is one argument. And the other argument that the Balala is preferring is that it's also expensive.
It is both. It is both, Eric. Because I'm telling you places that I have been to.
Okay, because
that
it sounds
Kenyans
like
say,
you're bringing into counter what Balala is saying. So
no,
it's both.
It is both. Because one, people don't know that they exist. Number two, those that then are aware that they exist are saying, I couldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole because I can't afford it. I can't afford it.
Or I can
By
only
the
go
time
there
you're
once.
Or once in a lifetime.
Yep.
I'll plan for it when my children graduate from college, for example, and we'll go and celebrate one big bang, of an event, and we will travel to Lake Bogoria, for example, and see where eggs can boil in a natural stream. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So apart from that, it would never even be in your mind that you could go a weekend each month to go and have a holiday in a part of Kenya.
And this is why I'm agreeing, and I'm agreeing with what Balala is saying. The industry itself needs to understand that this is a market here. And the industry understanding that it's a market here needs to price itself for this market. The industry is outpricing the local market.
I don't think it needs to even price it for the market. I think it needs to regard the market.
Yes.
Let me
From
ask
the
my
very
question
beginning.
again. What is the government doing to support this industry? Because government support is an investment in an industry which they can reap from when the industry is thriving. What does the government do? Post-COVID 2020, okay? Do you know how much money Japan has put aside to spend on tourism? $2.2 billion US dollars.
Post-COVID.
Post. I'm talking about 2020, not 1950. Yes. Why? The tourism industry has long understood certain things that we are yet to understand.
Yep.
Or if we understand, the support that makes you head in that direction isn't there. Or what we're saying about the media. Our tourism industry has made money doing what they do, so they've also seen no need to change. But we now have a perfect opportunity to do precisely that, change. We've had it before when we had tribal clashes and such things that prevented tourism from coming. They were able to sort of like survive because of the local tourism. Now, then we forgot about it again. So, Eric, this isn't something it's not a teeth-pulling exercise. It's not.
I remember in the I believe it was the mid-2000s, right, when I had come here and that KWS went on this campaign where they were trying to make then some of these holiday destinations or even sightseeing destinations then available for Kenyans. Or rather, they were trying to get more and more Kenyans to visit some of these places.
Yep.
So one of the things that they did was, number one, lower the prices.
Yep.
And number two, then explain to people what was available for you to see in different parts of the country, from Western Kenya to Eastern Kenya to the coast, all over the place, to get that these are parks that the government has. You can actually come and see for a very low price. It seemed to work
There was number three. There was number
What
three.
was number three?
Providing buses.
Yes, they provided the transport, whereby you didn't even have to think about the transport aspect, and you pay a low fee, you get to see a different part of the country, and then you're taken there with some money that you can afford, and you could do it very many times.
Yep.
Now, it died.
No, it didn't.
No.
It didn't.
No. I'm not saying the activity died. I'm saying the fervor with which Kenyans were being made aware more often of what was available died. That we cannot even argue with. Because after some time, it's just kind of like, oh, all right, so we've done the campaign and finished. I am saying it needs to be regular. It needs to be all the time.
But it is.
No, it isn't.
It is.
No.
Well, explain, Eric, what do you mean?
You can't
that it is?
compare it with the way it started.
There are adverts on TV regularly. There are adverts on the newspapers regularly. There are even adverts on social media by KWS. Whenever you have, for example, the holidays coming up, you will see adverts on TV, on radio, in the social media.
There's something you said there that's very important. When the holidays are coming up.
I'm talking about, because that's when I remember that specifically. They have specific campaigns during that time when they talk about this weekend come. But throughout the year, there's that communication they're talking about, it's still there.
How effective is it?
It's still there.
I agree. How effective is it?
No, I don't know. We can ask.
No, I would measure the
ask for the
effectiveness.
statistics and say, since then, what are the numbers that you receive in the national parks going forward?
If you look at countries that are known to also be holiday destinations for people, I'm going to come to East Africa, but let me go to Spain first. Post-COVID, they have offered, for instance, the equivalent of $200 worth for every child. Well, every child up to 4 or 4 people in a family. 200. That's for spending. Hotel, a voucher, $1,000. All you do is take yourself there. Essentially, there's a little detail here. Once people start going, then as I said, people will continue going.
Yep.
I'm looking at, say, there's one very popular restaurant in this country because you see it. Well, it's all over the country, but it's mostly in Nairobi. It's called Java. It doesn't overflow because people don't want that, but it is with the spacing they have, it is full.
Yes.
People keep going there. Now, there's only one difference that I noticed. You can ask for certain things that are no longer there now. So you get the impression maybe they're not in.
They keep rejigging
their menu.
Precisely. Now, what am I saying? I am saying they wouldn't have that number of people still coming if even before COVID they had not established a reputation as being a certain type of eatery. Now, if you make, for instance, we have all sorts of interesting places, Giraffe Manor, some places in the Karen area, some places, Naivasha, you go beyond Kenjan, some very interesting establishments that most Kenyans have no clue about.
There you go.
Because they advertise only in specific places and in specific magazines. If Kenyans knew about these things, I know for a fact that there's always a segment of individuals who would like to go.
It's true.
Do you know why, for instance, eating out and going to places has increased, in my opinion? It's because establishments that people would prefer to go to have increased in the country because of devolution. You'll find hotels growing. You'll find, because with devolution, there are more people who are likely to have an income that region did not have before, so they are able to at least spend. What am I saying? With devolution, we even have the possibility of ensuring that an even larger population are able to access our so-called tourism destinations. That's what I'm saying. And is it being marketed?
Unfortunately, no.
By who?
Eric, the fact that it's on TV and that it appears often doesn't mean it's effective because...
No, I'm asking. No, I'm not going to on the KWS
government
issue. Is a business marketing itself?
Businesses try. That's where I see them on TV. They try.
Okay.
They really try.
So, and the issue here is, what is industry doing? What is industry doing to ensure that it expands its own access to the local market?
Well, unfortunately, if they ask, is that the question that you're asking? Unfortunately, the answer is that the industry is not doing enough to make sure that this happens. Point blank, and we can't even say anything else. It's not doing enough. You have to, there's some countries that all you know about them is what they have to offer in terms of tourism. And then you would think that they don't do anything else. But by virtue of the fact that the tourism is so vibrant, that means that there's so much more that they are doing to be able to put that on the platform. So I'm saying that it's not doing enough. It's not doing enough to make it more attractive. To your first port of call for tourists should be the ones that are in the country where you are domiciled.
Have more people.
Absolutely. And then secondly, make it more affordable. So is the industry doing enough to buffer? Absolutely not.
9:30, let's look at traffic and continue. conversation. We'd like to open up the phone lines for you. 0719-012-600. Tourism CS Najib Balala says has a lot of problems. The problem that he has is the local tourism there because they have overpriced themselves, and if you know the industry needs to reduce the price. For a long time, the industry was targeting and marketing itself to foreigners coming to the country. And even for that, Balala says, you'd find that people would come to the country for once in a lifetime and they don't come back. Why? Because they found it too expensive to come. We're a long-haul destination, and then you come into the country, you're finding an expensive product. And then now for local tourists, it's still an expensive product. For very many people, if you told them, go to the Masai Mara today, if you go into the Masai Mara, you need to sleep in the Masai Mara. How many hotels in the Masai Mara are pocket-friendly for Kenyans? That's the question that Balala is asking. And that's where the challenge is this morning. 0719-012-600. Let's take a look at traffic.
All right, looking much better, guys. I think now out of traffic hour, we're going to see some smooth moving traffic, unless something major then does happen. But for now, from all parts of the city, it seems to be absolutely fine. Coming off of Thika Road, just a little bit right around the Globeson roundabout, trying to get into the CBD. But apart from that, it's okay. Some issues here and there with the road construction. And we know that Lunga Lunga is still closed for that to finish. But apart from that, it looks good.
You are tuned in to Nairobi's #1 soul station, Spice FM. Traffic.
10 o'clock. It's the situation room. Kenya's biggest conversation is the industry. The local tourism industry. Is it targeting Kenyans? Is it pricing itself for a Kenyan market? That's what Balala is saying this morning, that he's completely frustrated by this. And you're wondering, so what is it that the government is doing also to support the local industry, right?
You know, even as he says that there are people who actually make Kenya a one-time destination, please understand, even with foreign tourists, there are different segments of tourism offered in this country. Mass tourism, where you are all jam-packed into a plane, where you can barely move, there is that sort of tourism. That's cheap tourism, really. People who can afford it are many. And in that segment, you have many repeat tourists, people who come to Kenya and keep coming back and keep coming back. People who come and want to go on safari, as we call it, okay?
Yep.
And book to not just go to the Mara, but they also want to go to the Serengeti. And maybe from there, they want to go to Kruger National Park.
Right.
That's a different kind of tourist. Those ones will go to a place where they can even hunt. Different kind of tourist pays a different package. Now, those ones you reach through agencies, through government efforts, etc. But they are the local ones who would perhaps like to have these same experiences, even if they have to save for it and go there once in a while. Why, for instance, do you think that, say, this particular industry in Naivasha has mushroomed long before COVID? Naivasha isn't far from Nairobi. It isn't far from Nakuru. And you can reach it, and they offered variety. Along that road, I'm trying to call it, what do you call that road? North.
Moi
North Road. Yes, you've understood it. It's strewn with hotels that are popular, but the others which are even less known and even older. Same road. All I'm saying is this.
Oh, the south. This is the south.
South, yes, it's south.
South Lake Road.
No, not north, yes, south. But Kenyans go there. You know why? Some of the people who deal in the hotel industry, like tour agents and what have you, or these fellows who organize for travel, what are they called?
Travel agents.
Yes.
Those ones, yes.
Yes.
They know about these things and they are locals. Many are locals. It's their business, so they know. So they will tell people. But a concerted effort, I'm going back to the government,
Needs to be made.
by the government to actually push this agenda. When the government wants to push an agenda, man, they push it. Remember how they pushed the agenda of the 1,000 shilling note?
Oh, yeah.
The new 1,000 shilling note. Man, you knew about it whether you wanted to or not. Now that's pushing an agenda. If you want to push the agenda of tourism, you can push it as the government.
If you look at now that you actually talked about the travel agents and the tour operators and those companies that play that
Crucial.
middle
Yes.
role, right? And this is why we're talking about the ones, Bonfire and the others. Why is it that they've emerged in the last couple of years? It's because there has been that demand from Kenyans. They want to go to places.
They do.
How do they position themselves in the market? Because they position themselves as, we can get you cheaper deals into these facilities.
And they also talk to the facilities that we can
rather
get
than
you
you going directly to that facility, because the facility is still dealing with expensive. So they, of course, create a package with this travel company, because you can bring me mass, then it's fine. See? It had to take a lot of time for some of these companies to actually convince the hotels. And yet it was not taking so much time for them to convince the people that, guys, come get into this tour van. I'm going to take you to a certain facility and you'll have 2 nights, 3 days. It's still not issue.
Eric, I once went on a holiday to Watamu. And why I went on that holiday was because I was talking to a tour agent whom I knew well and I've known for a long time. And they told me, no, wait. There are packages that are being offered during this period. Okay?
Yep.
When I was told the amount, I said, book immediately.
20 day.
Immediately. It is money I had put aside to spend when I was in Nairobi. And I could travel. All I need to do is get myself to the airport. Plane included. I land. Wherever I land, I have to get for my transport. That's it. There's a transfer available. Yes, there was a transfer available. All I'm saying was I looked at that whole deal and I said, wait a moment. But many people can afford this. But they don't know. They honestly don't know. Kenya Airways would partner with hotels. They used to offer some really, this one is cheap. And it's a sort of place that you'd like to go to with children. You know why? They put a band on your hand and you can eat as much as you like.
Yes.
So children don't have to bother you.
All inclusive.
Right.
All inclusive. And where you eat from is known. So they don't have to, they just need to head in that direction and eat.
Go there.
Drink, yes. And for those who are partial to alcoholic beverages, similarly.
It's great.
Then you can be amazed at how quickly you get tired of all that. But
that's the logic behind it, though, because you can only eat so much, right?
Yes. That's why I mentioned children.
Yeah. But it took some thinking and just a little bit of thinking to be able to craft these ideas. And this is what we are saying, essentially, that these things can actually be done.
Yes.
If you're looking to salvage this industry, because it's, it's on its knees right now with what we're looking at with COVID. But interestingly enough, Najib Balala himself has talked about the fact that it was already, on its knees before COVID. It just takes a little bit of application of thinking and then rolling out and establishing of these things to be done to act. You can have a thriving industry. And they talk about the fact that we are hoping we get 1 million tourists into Kenya in 2020. You've got 47 million Kenyans here, okay? I'm not saying all 47 million of them are going to travel, but you have a good percentage of them that would travel and within the country that could buffer these numbers that you're looking at. It would be unrealistic of me to say, because of the way that we see, because of the class divides that exist in this country, to say that every single Kenyan would travel at some point. No. But there is a percentage of the population that you can depend on to carry the industry. And what it's going to take is the industry itself to really agree on some of these things. So it's the truth. Do you want a very few number of tourists every year to make you a little profit? Or do you want very many every year to give a lot of money in your pockets? It really is, for me, a decision that you have to make.
Do you want regular arrivals?
You want regular income and a lot of it? Or do you want very little?
Many of our tourism products maybe are actually just targeted towards that. Not mass markets, but specific segments of a market.
You're talking about us trying to reach 1 million. 2018, Tanzania were at 1.5 million. Here, just across. We share the Mara shares the same ecosystem as the Serengeti.
Yep.
But even the wildebeest migration that we're talking about, where are they migrating to and from? See, Tanzania and here. It's Tanzania and here.
When we spoke with Balala on this show, when was it? Was it around April?
Yes.
Right? He said the same thing. He said, now what the conversation that the ministry is having and having all these meetings with the operators is telling them, look, guys, reality is This year, forget. Getting international arrivals in terms of tourists, forget it. Next year, you are talking about getting tourists coming from mid-2021. So in the meantime, when you start thinking about the days we shall reopen, think about the local market.
Yeah.
This story today is quoting him saying, he was speaking in a webinar organized by a Wild International innovative professional services firm, and he was urging tourism operators to become digitally proactive during this period, especially in tapping the domestic market that holds immense potential. He's saying the same thing. This is a conversation that he's having with them. What is the industry's response? If I was hearing industry's response saying, you know what, Balala has said this, and we've gone to the government and told them, look, this is why we cannot lower our prices below this. Because this, and the other. And for us to get a minimum, it's going to be impossible. We need this kind of extra support from the government. When you speak to the Hotel Keepers and Caterers Association, they still are not able to say this is exactly what we need to do in order to bring our margins, our prices completely low.
Maybe then you want to ask then what do they really want? You don't want Kenyans in your establishments? Because that would be the question. You're not looking to have Kenyan tourists come and partake?
There are very many establishments that have come up across the country that are basically just targeting Kenyans, but also you see they look at conferencing.
You know,
many companies, many county governments now will have meetings in these facilities. So just like you said, county governments are a source of money. So it's looking at, if I'm getting money from a county government, they'll come here and have a meeting, spend a day, and I'll be able to charge them. Then I'm doing okay.
Yeah, buy a couple of drinks in
You know, all our neighbors, all, and I mean all, whether it's Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, they do better than us. Now, you tell me, if you look at South Africa, bigger country than ours, yes. You know how many tourists they see? I'm talking about 1918 statistics. 16.44 million. Now,
in a year.
as we are talking about getting to 1 million, there are countries that don't even have wildlife. They just have mountains.
Yep.
And then they have buildings.
And vegetation, flora.
Yes, nothing remarkable and as diverse as ours, and yet they do better. This is why, Eric, you see me diverting back to the government. Balala is a good minister to have in this ministry for a simple reason. This man understands tourism. As I said, he's been in it long before he joined government, even before he got into politics. Balala was in tourism. It's something he has been in for a long time.
He gets it.
Oh, he got it a long time ago.
Yeah, he does. So I think that I mean.
So when as minister is telling me it's expensive, you know, I'm at a loss of words.
So this is the Kenya Tourism Board's website. They have this tourism opportunities in the new normal environment that they've published. These are conversations that they're having with the sector, with the players in the sector. So, for example, in the domestic tourism growth, what they're advising the sector is to put in place marketing activities and incentives that will facilitate domestic tourism, heighten tourism marketing activities to Kenyans through TV, radio, internet, print media, social media, target growing middle class, about 1.1 million and 20,000 people. That's 36.9% of the employed population. Propose a one-week nationwide holiday for all working population during August and December school holidays and holidays as non-wage income, repackaging tourism products with the local market interests. This is what they are basically working towards doing. Okay? Encouraging more Kenyans to travel for business and leisure purposes within the country, making the domestic market economically viable for the private sector, intensifying research to establish the needs of the domestic, some of the things that KTB is doing, some of the things that it's asking the players in the sector to do. Okay? Now, yes, we are talking about how many tourists, what are the tourism numbers for Kenya? What are the tourism numbers for South Africa? If you talk about South Africa, for example, South Africa over the last couple of years, just around the World Cup, when did South Africa host the World Cup? 2010. The 2010 World Cup. It went on a complete big blitz on packaging and promoting tourism into South Africa. All right? South African tourism, big. And their big source market was Africa. Marketing across Africa. Come to South Africa. Visit South Africa.
They did.
and eat
You
more
couldn't
fruits.
listen to the radio or watch TV
Without hearing
without it.
something.
Without hearing, come to South Africa. So this is part of what you're saying the government could do in terms of now this marketing. It's about saying, let's visit these places. Package, because there are circuits in this country. Already the Kenya Tourism Board has the tourism circuits. There's a coastal circuit, the western circuit,
keep
the Mount Kenya
expanding it
circuit. And the facilities around there. In fact, for a very long time, constantly they keep creating information about this. Tech journalists like the one who's written this story today, Thorn Muli, going to these places to have an experiential so you can write and tell the stories of the places and the facilities are available.
You know, Eric, even as you're mentioning it, you talk about circuits. My mind just kept going to Shaba.
Yeah.
Then I thought about Turkana. And I kept thinking, goodness gracious me, there's so much to see.
There's a lot to see.
There
in this
is. It's unbelievable. There's a lot to see. There's a lot to do. And it's possible to have it in a manner that's pocket friendly. Because if you're talking about circuits, for example, what couldn't a family do in every quarter of the year, for example, going around
how
the
many,
country?
for
And
instance?
affordable. We're not talking about out of the water millions of shillings spent here.
Yep.
You know, you're talking about maybe what you would spend for a trip up country, for example, what you would spend to cater for your children and transport and all that. You could put that together and actually go and see a different part of this country
No.
with your family.
There's a national park in Suba called Ruma National Park. I'm sure there are many, forget Kenyans, I'm sure there are many people in that region who have not...
Who
have not
don't
even-
know.
Who they don't know that it
national
is there.
Nope. And there's also a prehistoric site, Thimlich Oinga, in Migori. I'm sure there are people who have no clue. All I'm saying is, there is so much people don't know about. But when I talk to government, you see, I'm not limiting it to Serikali Kuu. No,
Even the counties as well.
No. Serikali Kuu have a function, yes. But county governments are governments. And they have all these places within. And these are revenue sources for them as well.
They've started doing that by even creating departments of tourism. It's now looking at the effectiveness of that. Is it effective communication? Are you getting the support that you require from? Because when people come, yes, I've brought the people. If they're coming to these facilities and they're expensive, if they're coming to the facility and the only thing that the facility is offering is bed,
Then you have
people
to
no
look for
longer
more money
do
to buy.
bed as holiday. It is the experience of the holiday. 12 minutes to 10 o'clock. Let's go back to looking at what the KPA has to offer on this portal. It's the information portal called Captain Cargo.
Right.
KARGO.
So today we're looking at the standards that KPA will definitely offer you, and all of this can be found on the portal. So now we talked about standards for port operations, and then standards for loading and offloading. Within 1 hour of the train's arrival at the ICDs, will deliver your container within 5 hours of the truck's gate in and gate out, and loading confirmed delivery cargo within 2 hours of gate in. And this is what KPA promises, and this is what the ports promise, and this is what is here. Documenting processing standards, invoice processing within 30 minutes upon submission, and correspondence standards, meaning that, you pick up the phone and call, somebody's going to be on the other end of the line to hear from you and also give you the much immediate information that you have. And to say that 24/7, there's availability to pick your phone's calls within 3 rings, and identifying the department called and the name of the officer answering that. So taking you through the portal here, just ensuring everybody who uses the services that KPA has to offer, that there are certain standards that they will not go below in terms of offering the service.
kpa.co.ke/Captain KARGO. So some comments to Najib Balala's comments. So this is what
Spice
Najib Balala said.
FM,
The problem I have with our
Nakuru.
tourism industry is that we have overpriced ourselves. Even the people who come to Kenya, they come once in a lifetime because it's very expensive. We need to make it more affordable even for Kenyans. Comment number one. One of the first things that this government did was put VAT on parking back in 2013. And
Spice
Balala
up your
was
life.
yes. By comparison, even the Meru National Park is more expensive to enter.
Mature,
than the
intelligent
Kruger.
talk
So
every
let
morning.
that sink in.
Spice up yourself.
Somebody else asked, how do we price our product? It all starts with the overhead. Government taxes, very high. Other taxes to tax the taxes. Fuel cost high, cost of labor high, will actually benefit to the so-called overpriced tourism industry. Why is it that the money is going? So it starts from, if the tax is high, if the overheads are going to be high, then there's a certain level below which we really cannot pass.
And who would help alleviate this? The Association of Hotel Keepers, the Association of the
Tour operators.
yes, the tourism board, the government. Who? I mean, it has to be, I believe, a concerted effort with all these players.
Absolutely. It's got to be a concerted effort. There's certain things that everybody has to do. If you're going to look at it from government, I mean, one of the core duties is to create an enabling environment within business, then within which business can be done. And that goes to some of the things that you've pointed out now in terms of the reduction of, or scrapping of certain taxes in certain areas. If everybody realizes what needs to be done in order for this to be, the cash cow that we talk about, then there's certain roles that everybody has to play. Are we looking at creating that enabling environment? Are there certain taxes that are perhaps unnecessary when it comes to things like domestic travel and domestic tourism and holidays? Then sit down at the table and say, look, these are some things that we can get then rid of. Hotels, can we say that this is the minimum? Isn't it ridiculous that you have a park within you would rather to see Meru more expensive than Kruger? Kruger, you mentioned, does anybody have to tell you where Kruger is? Why don't you just talk about Kruger? Why? You know where it is. Serengeti, you know where it is.
Masai Mara,
you know where it is.
everybody in the world.
Exactly. You know where they are in the world. So why is it that one has to be so much more expensive than the other in comparison?
And they offer more or less the same thing.
The same thing. It's not. It doesn't make sense that one should be so much more expensive. So there are different players here, and it cannot be that each and every one of these players, as is usually the case, is operating in silos when everybody wants the same. Can you imagine? 6 or 7 different sectors want the same result, but they're operating in silos. Can it work?
No.
It's not possible. It's got to be a concerted effort. That, for me, is the only way that these things that are being suggested can actually work. Got to come together and agree.
One of the things, if you talk to people in the airline business, I guess the same for many business, but let me talk about the airline business. They would tell you, I used to travel a great deal using KQ. And so you get to know people and you get to talk to them. And one of the things that struck me was the pricing of tickets. They will tell you, ticket offer from this time to this time, this period is this. Don't assume that even if you go on the day of your travel, you'll get the ticket at that price. No. There's a limited number of tickets that they will offer at that price. Then a certain number at a certain price. It's well segmented. You know why? You then figure out how it is you are going to make your money. For instance, what sort of occupancy must a hotel have, for instance, to remain solvent? It isn't 100%. It isn't even 50%. It's less. So all I'm saying is, there is the problem of trying to ensure that you keep making the profits you're making. And there is the issue of being realistic with the times that you are in and ensuring that you continue for the longer run. So what does it mean? It means cutting down on main things. If it means reducing salaries, by all means have that discussion with your people. Have that discussion with the unions and say, for us to continue being competitive, this is what we must do. When things change, we can look into it.
Yeah.
Okay. The produce that many of our people in the service industry use, they are locally grown. If we export some of that stuff, it means there's enough to actually be used locally.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, it's not a discussion that you require the UN to intervene in.
No.
Or the AU.
Really
it's a
not.
discussion we can simply have locally and can be done if there is the will.
If there's a will. And I think it all comes down to that. And that's what I was saying. It's not even in terms of you working on the pricing. That's far ahead in the game. Start, first of all, by having accept the regard, first of all, that this could be the audience that you could serve. And the audience then that comes from outside could be minimal to fill in the gaps. But your mainstay is right here, ready, willing, ready to go.
What's the percentage? 90 what percent of Americans just visit America?
91.
See?
91 of America's of the U.S. tourism is domestic tourism.
So it means foreigners can actually just stay in their country.
Yeah. They actually don't need you to come there.
Foreigners that came to Kenya in 2019 were 2,048,000 in 2019. 1.4 million of those just to Nairobi.
You see?
Were they tourists?
Foreigners,
no.
Isn't it? Foreigners.
Yes, but were they tourists? The answer is no. But they came into the country. So you can divide.
Piggyback on that.
Yeah, some of them were tourists.
Some were
of
coming
them
for meetings,
business fees. Some of them for conferences.
work,
yes.
yeah.
Now, if you already have that, tell me.
It's a huge number. It's quite a huge number. Yes, indeed. So there's a lot that all players in this sector need to do. Basically, just to look at how is it that you can attract, how can you thrive with the local industry supporting you for at least the next 2 years, because globally the global numbers are going to stay very low. Coming to the end of the show, coming to 10 o'clock, City, today's proverb, and tell us what it means now.
It is the heart that is afraid of breaking that never learns to dance. You see, people dance when they're happy. People dance when there's something to celebrate. Now, to celebrate it means you need to have made some achievement. There must be some progress made, meaning you need to move from the comfort zone that you're in. So if you're unwilling to move from that comfort zone, do not expect to have something to rejoice over.
Bas. Thank you very much for joining in today. Join us again tomorrow as we close the week on a high, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Between now and 2 o'clock, you have uninterrupted music, sugar and spice and everything nice. And then you'll have Monique on Spice Drive. And later, the adults in the room will be here. Until then, Nduoko, CT Muga, Eric Latif tell you good day. It's 10 o'clock.